6:15. We will call this meeting to order. If everybody would please stand, remove your hats, and we will recite the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, at this time I would like to welcome our brand new board member, Mr. Scott Peterson. Everybody give him a round of applause. He is the one board member that is super prepared tonight because he just received his information right before the meeting. So I'm looking forward to working with Scott over the next 3 years on the board. And then we want to welcome back to the board Jill Maddock Nelson. Give her a round of applause. And the three of us have already taken our oath of office with Michelle, and so we are ready to go. Item letter D. Michelle, roll call, please.
Dr. Dave Bardot.
Here.
Bobby Braun. Here. Jill Maddock Nelson. Here. Kristen Mattmiller.
Here.
Scott Peterson.
Here.
Catherine Solon.
Here.
Angie Schreiber. J.D. Schrader.
Here.
Danny Pyatt.
Here. Number 2, new category, student representatives, letter A. Lucy, you are up.
Good evening. I'm just going to run through my outline like usual. I think by this time of the year, everybody's used to it. First, I'm going to start with academics. The juniors completed their ACT on March 19th and have received their scores already. From what I heard, most kids were fairly happy with it. I don't really have a stat on like an average or anything like that, but from what I heard, there was pretty good results. AP tests begin taking place the first full week of May and continue for a couple weeks. The high school offers 6 AP tests this year. They're in government and politics, human geography, literature, U.S. history, AP Calc, language, and then there's an AP art portfolio. Like, we offer the class, but they turn in a portfolio and don't take a test. So, and then the cell phone and personal electronic policy is in full effect. 4 students have reached step 4, which is the 30 days virtual, and 12 have reached step 3, which is the suspension. I was supposed to share those numbers because they're fairly low compared to what most were expecting. Field trips. The co-op and youth apprenticeship luncheon is tomorrow, April 24th at North Star. So I'm in the co-op program, and basically what it is all the kids in the co-op program or in youth apprenticeship get to bring their employers to this big lunch that Ms. Fisher organizes, and it's just a chance to show gratitude towards our employers and basically wrap up the end of the co-op year. And then there's also the NTC Spring Preview tomorrow, which I think kids get to go take a look at NTC and what NTC has to offer. And then the sophomores are going to UW Green Bay on April 25th, which is Thursday. And then there's a lot of special events this month or coming up in May. The Self-Care Day that's being hosted at the high school is this Friday, April 26th, and kids have signed up for their rotations already. And then prom is this weekend, April 27th. There was a 90% attendance what would I call that, restriction, like you had to have 90% or better attendance to attend prom, but if students did not make the cutoff, they were able to make that opportunity up. Like they had, I think some kids did community service, and then there was another thing, I'm not sure what they had to do, something with late slips. I think they might have had to been early for every day they were late or something, but, and then May 5th is the National Honor Society banquet. So seniors will be exiting as the current NHS members, and the juniors will be inducted. May 19th is the FFA banquet, and I think it's a very similar process to NHS. And then April 10th was senior portfolio night, which was great, and seniors also received their caps and gowns for graduation, which is quickly approaching and has many events along with it. The senior walkthrough, followed by the senior picnic, is May 24th, which is also the last day of school for seniors. The scholarship ceremony is May 29th. The senior campout is May 30th, and then there is a mandatory graduation practice on May 31st, which is also the last day of school for the rest of the district, and then graduation is Sunday, June 2nd. Sports and clubs, the AHS yearbook club submitted the yearbook and is now working on the spring supplement. The forensics team competed at a state competition. And then I just have a list of all the sports because last time I didn't recognize them all, and I just like to recognize all the spring sports. So the high school offers girls and boys track and field, girls and boys golf, boys baseball, girls softball, girls soccer, boys tennis, and trap. And so those are all active currently. I know that the girls and boys track team sent 9 competitors to indoor state. And to no surprise, Mackenzie Wisbrocker won the long jump and broke the school record for at least indoor long jump. I'm not sure if it was like overall. I think it might have just been indoor, but that's impressive per usual. I feel like there's always a lot to say about that. Also, I have something different tonight. As the student body representative, I'm asked to speak on behalf of my peers, and I received a request. So I'm going to speak on behalf of student Ben Robrecht with a speech he prepared. Hello, my name is Ben Robrecht. I am a senior student athlete in Anago, and I am on the baseball team. I'm writing this on the behalf of my coach and teacher, Mr. Lorenz. From the very first day I met Mr. Lorenz, I knew he would be a great benefit to our school and baseball program. He made it very clear that he was going to improve our culture here in Anago. Out of all the coaches I have had, Mr. Lorenz has made the greatest impact on me, not only as a baseball player, but as a responsible adult. Mr. Lorenz has always preached doing things the right way and with complete effort, because no matter what the result may be, you can sleep easy at night knowing that you've given it everything you had. The things Mr. Lorenz has taught me have made me a much higher class individual, and I know that I am not the only one he has affected. I have never seen a teacher that so easily builds good relationships with any student they come across. The impact Mr. Lorenz has made on students in the Wings program has been astounding. He has a great relationship with every student and holds them to a higher standard than anyone. His program has been extremely beneficial to the students that it is intended for. These students have never cared about their academics like Mr. Lorenz has changed their life like no other teacher has. There is not a single teacher in this school that deserves to be here as much as him. He has dedicated a lot of time away from his family to have an impact on young people here in Anago. He drives an hour every day to be here for his students and baseball players alike. Every single student and athlete knows the sacrifices Mr. Lorenz makes to be here for us, and we all respect him greatly. He is currently missing this meeting to be at the baseball game. He puts the needs of his players over his personal feats and defending himself. The value that Mr. Lorenz brings to the school is immeasurable, and it could only become greater. His overall impact on students and athletes have changed their lives for the better. Without him, our culture will only continue to diminish. I ask on behalf of all students and athletes that the board reconsider their decision and see the value that Mr. Lorenz brings to the youth of Anago. Thank you. I also have a copy of that statement if anybody would like it. But yeah, that's all I have. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions for Lucy?
Tell me more about the cell phone policy. Is it really weird, or is it?
I feel like maybe I shouldn't say this because it might be an unpopular opinion, but I kind of like it because, well, personally, for myself, I think that it's made things easier for me to focus on what I need to be doing. I know a lot of kids might not have that opinion, but speaking for myself, it's a bit easier to keep on task, and it is weird. I I would say it's weird for a lot of us, but I think, I don't know, I haven't heard much about it since it actually became a thing. Like, before it was a thing, there was a lot of, like, talk and opinions on it, but now that it's there, it's just there. It's kind of just normal to everyone.
Do most people leave their phones at home, or do they put them in their lockers?
I put mine in my jacket pocket, and then I take off my coat and leave my jacket in my locker all day. So that's the easiest way for me, because then it's just, if it's not somewhere I really think to, like, grab it. Otherwise, I think most kids just leave it in their locker. I'm not really sure. Or backpacks, because you're not supposed to have it, like, walking in the hallway, or, like, when you leave school, you kind of are supposed to wait. So I think backpacks are another thing that people do. Okay, any questions? Does anybody want the statement?
Lucy, if you'd like to just email that to all the board members, that would be great.
Oh, okay, that
And
sounds.
thank you very much for reading that on his behalf.
Thank you, sorry. Have a
That's
good night.
okay. You too.
Thank you, Lucy.
Okay, letter B is recognition, and I don't see Mr. Mary here tonight, but I do have a certificate of commendation presented to Andy Mary in recognition for his service to children in Wisconsin Public Schools. This is for 12 years of school board service. This is signed by the WASB, that's Wisconsin Association of School Boards, the president, as well as the WASB executive director. So if we could give Mr. Mary a round of applause for 12 years of school board service. And we will see to it that Mr. Mary receives this certificate from WASB. Thank you. Okay, next we have public comment, and before I go into the list of public comment, I just want to read the rules of public comment, and all the board members also have at your place the policy 0167.3, which is public comment at board meetings. I would suggest you hold on to that, keep it with you, so you know what the policy states for public comment. The presiding officer of each board meeting at which public comment is permitted shall administer the rules of the board for its conduct. The presiding officer shall be guided by the following rules. Public comment shall be permitted before the board takes official action on any issue of substance. Attendees must register their intention to comment in the public portion of the meeting upon their arrival at the meeting. Comments made by the public shall be civil in content and tone, affirming the decorum established for a school board meeting by the school board. Disparaging comments, remarks about school board members, employees, students, positions or position titles, and or district citizens shall not be made permitted. Comments by public shall be in reference to a specific agenda item. Participants must be recognized by the presiding officer and will be requested to preface their comments by an announcement of their name and group affiliation if and when appropriate. Each statement made by a participant shall be limited to 5 minutes duration, which Dustin will have 5 minutes on the screen. No participant may speak more than once on the same topic unless all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. Participants shall direct all comments to the board and not to staff or other participants. Participants shall address only topics within the legitimate jurisdiction of the board. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No person may address or question board members individually. The presiding officer may interrupt, warn, or terminate a participant's statement when the statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. The presiding officer may request any individual to leave the meeting when that person does not observe reasonable decorum, or request the assistance of law enforcement officers in the removal of a disorderly person when that person's conduct interferes with the orderly progress of the meeting, or call for a recess or an adjournment to another time when the lack of public decorum so interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting as to warrant such action. The portion of the meeting during which the comment of the public is invited shall be limited to 60 minutes unless extended by a vote of the board. Recording, filming, or photographing the board's open meetings by third parties is permitted pursuant to 19.9 Wisconsin State Statute. The person operating the equipment should contact the district administrator prior to the board meeting to review possible placement of equipment and must agree to abide by the following conditions. No obstructions are created between the board and the audience. No interviews are conducted in the meeting room while board is in session. And no commentary, adjustment of the equipment, or positioning of operators is made that would distract either the board or members of the audience or otherwise disrupt the meeting while the board is in session. And those are the rules that govern us per our board policy. I know there are a number of students here, and I'm so glad to see all the students that are here tonight. And many of you have signed up to sign, and I look forward to hearing from you. Just a couple of side notes. When you come down to the microphone, please be sure to speak into the microphone so that the recording can pick you up. And then remember, you're addressing the presiding officer, which is me, and you cannot question board members or anybody else in the room. And I will make a mistake on pronouncing somebody's name, so please forgive me in advance. First off, who we have is Nicole Smith. Nicole, if you want to come down, and you get to start. No, Nicole?
I put that one on there.
Okay. All right. Next, we have Arwen Kazarik. Arwen, if you want to come down. Everybody give Arwen a hand because she's breaking the ice for everybody. Arwen, you need to state your name into the microphone and what position or what you're speaking to that's on the board agenda.
Arwen, you may need to adjust your microphone too, just in case.
Maybe. I'm a little short.
Miss Moore is there to help you.
Always. Okay, I'm Arwen Kazarik. I am 17 years old, and I am from Antigo, Wisconsin, and I go to the Antigo High School. I'm in 11th grade, and I'm a student of the Alternative Education Program.
And is that the point that you're speaking toward?
I am speaking towards, what's the name of it?
The retirement.
The Retirement and Resignation.
Okay.
Then to add on to it, I'm here also to talk about my experience with the WINGS program, if that's acceptable.
Yes.
Okay. Since 7th grade, I have been homeschooled. My last several years have been filled with a curriculum that has been provided through the Wisconsin Department of Instruction. That is deemed to be appropriate for self-instruction. Needless to say, once I was of high school age, I started to struggle. Content became more difficult, and I did not really have an instructor to thoroughly help me through what I needed. And I didn't have peers to bounce my ideas off of or to congratulate myself when I had an accomplishment through school. Going through my junior year of high school, I felt it was time to return back to the District of Antigo. In the fall of 2023 came fast, and I found myself not doing well really at all. Like, I wasn't connecting with students, I wasn't doing good on my grades. I struggled staying in a good environment while I was here. I felt like I had no resources or outlets, and I felt like adjusting from homeschool and coming here was just a really hard idea for me, and to get past that, I almost considered going back to being homeschooled because of how difficult it was. But then my sisters, they graduated from here last year, I do believe, but they told me about the WINGS program, and I had no idea really what it was about, and I talked to my mom about it, and she said she thought it would be a really good idea for me. And then Mr. Lorenz and Ms. Samolinsky welcomed me with open arms, understanding that a fresh start was more than anyone could ask for in high school, of all the places. I think it's the case for a lot of students. Like, not many students are able to get a fresh start. Like, once they're struggling, it's hard to get back on the top. They created a very welcoming space for me and many other students, and I know that because I see it every day. I no longer struggle in school. Like, I'm a B average student. I think I got 1 A in there, but I do really good in school, which I'm proud of for myself, and they've celebrated my accomplishments with me. They've made me feel better about my environment. Every day when I come in there, they give me something to smile about, and I do the same in return for everybody in that classroom. But my belief is that I could not see that program being what it is now without those two very important people. They mean a lot to me. They have done an incredible amount of things for me, and I really do appreciate them. And I understand currently that there are some problems everybody's trying to go through and figure out and sift through, but I feel in the end we can get through them with a positive outlook. That's pretty much what I have, but okay, that'd be it.
Thank you, Arwen. Everybody give her a hand. She did a great job. Okay, the next one on the list is Molly, is it Chris John or Christ John? Chris John. Okay, come on down, Molly. Let's give Molly a hand.
My name is Molly Christian. I am from Antigo, and I go to the Antigo High School. And I am part of the WINGS program, and is also what I would like to talk about. I have a very strong opinion on Mr. Lorenz and the program that he runs. I've been told that the WINGS program will not be eliminated, which is very good news. However, I'm certain that it will not be the same without Mr. Lorenz. Part of what makes the WINGS program so effective and so important is Mr. Lorenz and the unconditional support that he offers each and every one of his students. I'm a junior in high school, and I can certainly say that I've never had a teacher like him. He cares deeply about each of his students, not only about their educational success, but about their personal success. His ability to recognize other people's potential is amazing to me, and I went into this school year with absolutely no hope, but Mr. Lorenz completely changed that for me. I went through some rough patches before getting to where I am now, but Mr. Lorenz never gave up on me no matter what. He's done so much for me without even realizing it, and I truly owe all of my success to him. Before I was accepted into the WINGS program, I was in multiple credit recovery classes, and as someone who has had lots of experience in that classroom, I think it's fair for me to say that it is not the same. It's not the same work environment at all, and some students seem to use that hour as just kind of a free hour, and it's just not the same environment. It's not. I got little to no progress done in there. Mr. Lorenz is a huge factor in our success as students, and I truly don't see anyone else running the WINGS program as well as he does. And then here I have a copy of a petition that my aunt made to keep Mr. Lorenz in his position at the Antigo High School. And as of earlier today, it was at 717 signatures.
Okay. Thank you, Molly. And next we have Eli Schrader. Let's give Eli a hand.
My name is Eli Schrader. I'm a father of 3 here in the local district. I'm here to talk about the 4K program at All Saints, which you guys are going to decide on tonight. I just have a few questions for you to ask yourselves and to consider before you decide, just basically going from a straight $30,000 budget that we spent this year to roughly $60,000 that you're going to spend possibly if you change to all day. The very first and most important thing is to consider the benefit the kids are going to get from going to full day, for the full day of structure and all that included. I also ask you to consider what's your average cost per child per se at West Elementary, East Elementary, or even North Elementary. How much do you pay per kid? I had about 24 hours to prepare for this speech, so I couldn't do a whole lot of the research myself, didn't have time. But just I'm gonna give you some rough numbers, really rough. I'm talking, if I'm way off, let me know. You have a $35 million budget for the year for this whole district. You roughly have 2,000 kids enrolled through here. So let's call it 30 million and 3,000 kids. That comes up to $10,000 per kid that you're roughly spending per year to send your kids through school. You're deciding whether to pay $1,200 or $2,500 per kid at All Saints. Those kids that are at All Saints in the 4K program are being tax credited at the 0.6 or whatever it is that this group gets. So they're in the same funding as all of the rest. Why would you be willing to pay $10,000 for one and only $2,500 or $1,200 for the other? Would you not be willing to pay the same? If you could get the same service for $2,500 per kid in comparison to $10,000 per kid, why wouldn't you go with the cheaper route? And make sure that that class is full of every kid that it could handle. With that, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Braden Igo. Braden? Okay, no Braden. I want to make sure. He did leave. Okay, thank you. Moving to Logan Schlevy. No, he left too. Okay. This next one, I might need some help. Is it Dalton? Dalton, he left too? How do you say his last name? Mahan, okay. I just can't read that. Jesslyn Tucker. Okay, Jesslyn, come on down.
All right, I'm a little nervous, but this is not the first time I've spoken in front of you guys about the same issue, so we'll try to get this done over with. Wings is a class that has made a big impact on my life. Obviously, I'm talking about Wings.
Thank you.
Initially drawn to it by force, I soon realized its profound influence on my perspective. Throughout Wings, I have explored topics ranging from personal development to societal issues, all while developing and uncovering more about myself and who I wanted to be. The Wings provided a safe space for self-expression and encouraged me to embrace my unique strengths and passions. Engaging in challenging discussions expanded my understanding of the world and my place in it. Wings empowered me to soar beyond prior limitations, resulting in a sense of confidence and resilience that continues to shape my journey towards self-discovery and fulfillment. Without Mr. Lorenz, Miss Sam, as well as Miss Moore, I would not be who I am today. I went from skipping classes, causing scenes in the hallway, and always being in the principal's office, as well as in and out of mental health institutions, to straight A's and a drama-free lifestyle. I went from a 0.8 GPA sophomore year to a 3.3 GPA junior year, all because of Wings. Throughout Wings, we have gone on incentive trips to the nursing home, hanging out with horses, laser tangy, and the school forest, where Miss Sam and Mr. Lorenz have spent money out of their own pockets. Without this class, I wouldn't have found my strength to be on my own and start worrying about me and not everybody else, nor would I have found my best friend Jasmine, who is also in Wings. This alternative schooling is more than just some class, at least to the people involved in Wings. A prior Wings student, Logan Comstock, has asked me to tell you what Wings means to him. In his words, the Wings class has proven to me to be a professional foundation for young individuals who are troubled in school and outside. Mr. Lorenz, Miss Sam, and Miss Moore have proven time in and time again their loyalty and respect towards their students. This class has taught me more than any other in the last 4 years at Anigo High School, and so has Mr. Lorenz. Speaking as, I am 17 years old, and I am a manager at my place of work. Logan travels for work, and he is making a lot more than probably most of you guys are. He welds. So not only has Wings brought me out of a place of self-harm and basically hating myself and had no idea what I wanted to do for my future, to I have plans where I am currently a manager at my place of work at 17. I plan on going back to college for cosmetology. and then starting my own business eventually after that too. So from no plans to all these goals in life, I would think that you guys should all notice, and not just you guys, everybody should realize how important the WINGS program is, but not only the program itself, the people who run the program currently. Nobody, like, they've had over half of their class already this year graduate, well, the seniors at least, and some of the juniors are almost done with school. I feel like that is pretty important, and whether you guys see that or not, everybody else does, and that's why there's so many of us here today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jesselyn, it gets easier the more times you come speak. You did a great job. Next, we have Glenn Siegman.
I'm actually I'm on there twice. If you don't mind,
see
I'm gonna
that.
skip the first one.
Okay, so you're going to go to the second one?
Actually, let me go to the first one real quick. The only thing I want to say is, everybody, I just want one more round of applause for those students that spoke out and tonight. That's all I'm gonna say. Now I'll move on to the next one. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to the next one, which is about the retirements and resignations.
Okay.
I'm usually more prepared than this. I literally decided to speak when I got here tonight, so I'm not normally as prepared, but probably good for everybody. But here's what so on the list tonight, on the agenda, there was 8 resignations and 2 retirements. My suspicion is that is not by choice. I would like to take this opportunity to read an email about that much of the staff received regarding resigning. So it's from the superintendent. It says, in an ongoing effort to keep you informed of the process.
Glenn, reading that email is out of order because that email was designed to go specifically to the staff, not to the
Okay,
community.
I won't read the email.
Am I correct, Mrs. Oginski?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll use my own words. I won't read
And there is a disclaimer at the bottom of that email if you would like to read that
It's not legally
disclaimer.
binding. It's not legally binding. I
So
already
you
checked
can
with an attorney.
continue on.
But I won't read the email.
Thank
But
you.
I will talk about what the email said. Basically, step 1, the people were told that they could voluntarily resign. Or maybe that was step 2. And now I don't have the email, I don't know. If they didn't, they would be up for non-renewal. Step 1 was people needed to voluntarily resign. If enough people did not voluntarily resign, then they would be something like put up for non-renewal. And if that's the case, they're basically, if they're being forced to resign, that ruins any chance of unemployment that the teachers would get, or the faculty and staff. If they are put for non-renewal, my understanding, based on all of the feedback I've gotten from a ton of the faculty and staff, and people that have worked in schools for many years, if they are put up for non-renewal, it essentially has the possibility of ruining their career. Because they have to explain why they were non-renewed. I don't know how many more people you plan on letting go, but I don't think fascism is an appropriate way to handle getting rid of staff. I can tell you one thing. Since I've started this journey, and this will be the last meeting I will be attending, I'm sure that's a big relief to you all. But I can tell you that one of these days I'm going to count. I'm going to look on the directory of the staff and faculty and count the number of faculty and staff, and then go back to all the messages I've received. And I can tell you and the community that if I had to estimate, a third to half have messaged me, and they have zero faith in this school board or the superintendent. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. I do want to say, concur with what Glenn said about the students. So glad that you're here tonight. And those of you that were brave enough to speak, I know that you were speaking on behalf of several other students. So thank you for being here tonight. Parents that are in the room, thank you for bringing your children, your kids, children, your our students, bringing your kids here in order to speak. It's very much appreciative. And come back more often and have more to say on other issues coming into the future. How about that? Board members, can we give all of our students here a great round of applause for coming out tonight? Thank you so much. Number 3, consent agenda. Letter A, approval of agenda, minutes and financial reports, requests for overnight travel, report of district retirements and resignations, and report of district new hires. I will be looking for a motion, please.
I move the board approve the agenda, minutes from the March 18, 2024 Board of Education meeting, April committee meeting minutes, district retirement and resignation report, report of district new hires, request for overnight travel, financial reports from March and April of 2024, consideration of current bills, checks number 7846 through 7933 in the amount of $213,351.34. ACH's numbers 232400965 through 232401122 in the amount of $845,639.38, and wire transfers in the amount of $186,790.72 for a total of $1,245,781.44.
Motion has been made by Jill. Would you like to speak to your motion?
No, thank you.
Is there any discussion on the motion on the floor? Okay, I failed to do something before I mentioned item number 3. With Scott Peterson being a brand-new board member, I wanted to make sure that we was giving him a chance to utilize the voting device properly. So I'm going to hold this motion on the floor, and I want us to go to the question that Dustin has prepared for us, so Scott can learn to use the voting device, and then we will come back to this motion. It would not be fair for Scott to vote without going through a practice vote with the voting device, as the rest of us have had that opportunity. Okay, so let's see the question, Dustin.
It is, have you ever missed the school bus?
Okay, have you ever missed the school bus? So yes, no, or if you want to abstain. The voting device is open. Would anybody like to change their vote? The vote is now closed. How many yeses do we have here? 1, 2 yeses, 3 yeses, and 2 noes. And David Bardo, he never rode a bus, huh? No?
I didn't say that.
I'm not going to comment on that.
I didn't miss the bus.
Oh, you didn't miss the bus. Okay, all right.
Your horse?
What?
All right, Scott, are you okay?
I never rode a bus.
You never rode a bus either, huh? You lived in town, right? You just walked to school. All right, so are you okay with the voting device? All right.
Right?
You did. So you got it right. Okay, now the motion on the floor that Jill presented, and there's no discussion. The voting device is now open. Pardon me?
Michelle?
Yes.
I need to abstain on check 7919 and 7947.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? I kind of rushed that. Okay, the voting device is now open. Would anybody like to change their vote? The vote is now closed, and the motion carries. We will go on to item number 4, reorganization of the board. And at this point, I will open the floor up for nominations and election of a clerk pro tem.
I nominate Michelle Zaromski as the clerk pro temp of the Antigo School District of Antigo Board of Education.
We have one nomination for Michelle Zaromski to be the clerk pro tem. Michelle, do you accept that nomination?
I do.
Are there any other nominations for the clerk pro temp for the board? Third and final ask, are there any other nominations for Michelle Zaromski, or I'm sorry, for the position of the clerk pro tem for the board? Hearing no other nominations, all in favor of Michelle being the clerk pro tem of the board, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Then it's carried. Michelle, you are now the clerk pro temp. Letter B, nomination and election of chair pro temp. I will be opening up the floor for nominations of election and nomination of chair pro temp.
I nominate Glenda Oginski as the chair pro tem.
Glenda Oginski has been nominated as chair pro temp. Glenda, do you accept this nomination?
Yes.
Second call for nomination of election of chair pro temp. Third call of election and nomination of chair pro temp. Nominations are closed. If you are in favor of Glenda Oginski being the chair pro temp, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Then it's carried. Glenda, you are now the chair.
Oh, I get the gavel.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, at this time, we will now seek nomination and election for board president. I open the floor for a nomination for board president.
I nominate Danny Pyatt as board president.
We have one nomination, a second nomination on the floor for board president. Hearing no second, do we have a third nomination for board president? All those in favor of electing Danny Pyatt for board president signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Now I'll strike the gavel.
You can. Okay, and I do accept that position. I'm sorry that you didn't ask me, but I will.
Oh, sorry.
We go on to item D, nomination and election of board clerk. I will open up the floor for nomination and election of board clerk.
I will nominate Kristen Matt Miller as board clerk.
Kristen Matt Miller, would you accept the nomination of board clerk?
I will.
Second nomination and election of board clerk. Third nomination and election of board clerk. Nominations are over. If you are in favor of Kristen Matt Miller becoming the board clerk for the school board, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, and it's carried. Thank you. Letter E, nomination and election of board vice president.
I nominate Dave Bardo as Vice President for the Unified School District of Antigo Board of Education.
Dave Bardo's nominated as the board vice president. Dr. Bardo, do you accept that nomination?
Yes.
Second nomination for election of board vice president. Third nomination and final for election of board vice president. Nominations are closed. All in favor of accepting Dr. Bardo as the board vice president, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Then it's carried. Nomination and election of board treasurer. I will open up the floor for nominations for the board treasurer.
I nominate Jill Maddock Nelson for treasurer.
Nomination made for Jill Maddock Nelson. Would you accept that nomination?
Yes.
Thank you. Second time nomination for board treasurer. Third and final call for nomination for board treasurer. Nominations for board treasurer is closed. All in favor of Jill Maddock Nelson receiving the election of the board treasurer, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. And it's carried. Nomination and election of board secretary. I will open the floor up for first nomination of board secretary.
I move the board elect Michelle Zaromski as the board secretary.
Nomination has been made for Michelle Zaromski to be the board secretary for the board. Michelle, do you accept that nomination?
I do.
Second nomination for election of boards, nomination for board secretary. Third nomination for board secretary. Nominations for board secretary is now closed. All in favor of electing Michelle Zaromski as the board secretary for the school district, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign, and it's carried. Letter H is an appointment of a delegate and alternate delegate to the 2025 WASB Delegate Assembly. I will say that last year that Bobby was our delegate, and if you would like to consider, would you like to have that? This is an appointment, this is not an election. If you would like to have that delegation,
Yes.
you would? Okay, then I'll appoint Bobby as the delegate to the 2025 WASB Delegate Assembly. I wonder if anybody would be interested in the alternate position. The question is, who else will be going to the assembly, to the convention,
Which is January
which is
23rd, 24th.
January, what's that date again, Bobby?
23rd, 24th.
January 23rd, 24th.
22nd through the 24th, I'm sorry.
Scott?
January, getting in there.
Scott, I'll appoint you. I'll be there too, but I'll appoint you as the alternate delegate. So Michelle, you can have Bobby as our delegate for the assembly, and Scott Peterson will be our alternate delegate. The appointment and the representative for the joint review for tax increment finance districts, the TIF with the city of Antigo. Angie Schreiber has been serving in this position. Though she's not here tonight, she did call me, reach out to me because of not being here. She said she would be willing to continue to serve at my appointment, so I will continue to appoint Angie Schreiber as the TIF representative. Letter J, the appointment of a representative for 3 years with CISA 9. I thought about this appointment for who could fill this position, and I would like for Scott Peterson to serve as the representative for the next 3 years for the CISA 9 board. Scott, would you accept that position?
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Consideration of designation of official publication. I will be looking for a motion here, please.
I move the board designate the Antigo Daily Journal as the official publication of the Unified School District of Antigo.
Motion has been made by Jill. Would you like to speak to your motion?
The journal has done a wonderful job and has been very workable, and I would recommend we consider utilizing them as our official publication.
Any other discussion on the item, on the motion on the floor? Any other discussion? Hearing no discussion, your voting device is now open. If you would like for the Daily Journal to continue being our official publication. Would anybody like to change their vote? Okay, the vote is now closed. All in favor, motion passes. Consideration of designation of official depositories. I will be looking for a motion, please.
I move the board adopt the following list as the official depositories for the Unified School District of Antigo: Banner Banks, BMO Harris Bank, Co-Managed Credit Union, Associated Bank, JP Morgan Chase Bank, Mid-American Administrative and Retirement Solutions, Inc., PMA Financial Network, Inc., / Wisconsin Investment Series Cooperative, and the Wisconsin Local Governments Investment Pool.
Motion has been made by Bobby. Would you like to speak to your motion?
No, thank you.
Any other discussion on the floor of the motion? Any discussion of the motion? Hearing none, the voting device is now open. If you're in favor of the motion on the floor, would anyone like to change their vote? The vote is now closed, and the motion carries. Consideration of designating a day, place, and time for regular meetings. I will be looking for a motion, please.
I move the board approve the third Monday of each month, 6:15 PM at the Anago High School Media Tech Room as the day, place, and time for regular meetings beginning July 1st, 2024.
Motion has been made by Jill. Would you like to speak to your motion?
No, thank you.
Any discussion on the motion on the floor? Any discussion on the motion of on the floor? Hearing no discussion, the voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? Okay, the vote is now closed, and the motion carries. Consideration of designating a day, place, and time for committee meetings. I will be looking for a motion, please.
I move the board approve the following schedule for committee meetings beginning July 1, 2024. All committee meetings will meet on the second Monday of every month, being held in the Anago High School's Media Tech Room, room 210-4. Times are as follows. Human Resources and Finance Committee at 4:30 PM. Building and Grounds not to begin before 5 PM. Curriculum, Instruction, Pupil Services, Special Education, Technology, and Human Growth and Development Committees not to begin before 5:30 PM. And the Policy Committee will meet as needed.
Motion has been made by Jill. Would you like to speak to your motion?
I will note that it is a change from the first Monday of every month. And then I also see an addition of the Human Growth and Development Committee also added.
Any other discussion of the motion on the floor? At this time, I'm passing out the committee appointments, the committee assignments. This is an assignment made appointment by me. You'll see your name on the respective committee that you're assigned to. I don't believe that there's many changes from before, but you can pass one over to Michelle so she has record of this as an official document. Any other discussion of the motion on the floor, as well as the committee assignments that you have?
Scott, you can go to all the committee meetings if you want.
JD says you can go to all. You just come to them all.
Maybe the first time.
Any other discussion? Hearing no discussion, the vote is to adopt beginning July 1 that all committee meetings will be on the second Monday of each month, held in this room, with the meetings beginning at 4:30, and then the other meetings will not begin before 5 or before 5:30. The voting device is now open. Bill, you want to try one more time? Okay, would anyone like to change their vote? All right, the vote is now closed, and the motion carries. Letter O, approval of authorization of electronic signatures. I will be looking for a motion, please.
I move the board authorize the use of the board officers' facsimile and/or electronic signatures as allowed by law and not prohibited by rules and regulations of the respective agency or organization.
Motion has been made by Bobby. Would you like to speak to your motion?
No, thank you.
Is there any discussion on the floor of the motion? Any discussion of the motion on the floor? Hearing no discussion, the voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? The vote is now closed. Motion carries. Item number 5, administrative reports. We will first go to Finance Director report. And for the administrative reports, I will turn this part of the meeting over to our District Administrator, Mrs. Ojenski.
Thank you. So the first report is the Finance Director report. That report is attached. Mrs. Fossbender is present if anyone has questions about the Finance Director report.
Kelly, can you talk through how broke are we? You know, that we can't afford the 30,000 for the All Saints or all the restructuring cuts?
JD, your questions. So in looking at answering how broke are we, when we're looking at the last several years of having federal stimulus money that has been used for operational costs or to subsidize the original operating budget, particularly with the largest amount of $4.8 million this last year, those funds were used to create positions. And when these funds were used to create these positions, it was brought to the board from our understanding that these positions were going to be eliminated when ESSER funds were sunset, which is September 30th. Funds have to be expended by June 30th. So,
Of the current year?
yes.
Thank you.
So in looking at how broke are we, there's a lot of things that come into play when you're looking at that. So without having numbers in front of me, in combination with RVA, which is Rural Virtual School or Academy, open enrollment out, and voucher school payments, we're at about $3 million of paying out money to other districts and other schools to serve our kids that are in our district. Another giant piece of that, like I said, is that $4.8 million. So we needed to siphon through all of the operational costs that were not written anywhere, that may have just been approved by the board, but then administratively weren't written anywhere, put into Skyward, which is our financial system, or put into WISE Grants, which is DPI's financial approval process. So it's been quite a process to figure out what has been put into federal stimulus money that is needed for operational costs, what are the positions that were created and funded with that, and then looking at all the other programs and pieces that affect our staff and our kids in our community, and really trying to streamline everything that we possibly can to avoid cutting people, programs, and salaries. So I don't really know how to answer your how broke are we, meaning we have cut positions to eliminate a budget deficit or reallocate funds as in accordance with what the board had approved as far as how to use those ESSER funds. So moving forward, you'll see tonight that we are looking at different approvals for salaries and health insurance increases and looking at a preliminary budget of coming in around June. So we're working through the different pieces that have to be reallocated to keep us on point as far as not facing a deficit. And those steps have begun, and obviously, as you're hearing throughout the community and tonight, some of those pieces had to be staff reallocations or staffing cuts.
So you'll have the deficit projection in June?
Deficit or not deficit. So based on what we're doing right now with looking at programs, realigning funds, meaning what are some of the pieces that we're double paying for, such as our social media pieces or different applications such as Zoom, or these are all pieces that we talked about at the Finance Committee. Infinite Campus pieces that have been purchased over several years but have never been utilized. So looking at the entire budget and all of the different pieces, we're trying to reallocate to be able to not have a deficit, but really look at the biggest piece is those staffing personnel choices that were made to be created with one-time federal funds. That's the biggest piece that's going to balance our budget because those pieces can't continue if we don't have $4.8 million that was a one-time fund.
How much money do we get per student right now? 11,200 state?
11,000.
11,000.
Mm-hmm.
So for the 0.6 for the All Saints kid, we get 0.6, or we get 60% of that money?
Yes.
6,600.
Okay. So
And when we're talking about those
That's all
pieces,
kindergartners.
if
Four
we,
Ks.
4Ks.
so when we're looking at being lean and streamlining programs and class sizes that we already have, one of the pieces with the 4K situation is that we have room in all of our 4Ks currently with class sizes. They're full-day programs, they have aides, they have a full-time teacher, they have specials, they have a full-time program. We have room for that. So an additional cost for an additional program that's off-site is another $30,000 to $60,000 that we can put into our own facilities, we can put into our own staff salary increases, into our health insurance increases, and into curricular resources, technology, all of those pieces that we have to fund anyways.
So you have room for 24 more students?
We do.
How many kids do we put in each of those classes? The last time I was in one, it was crammed.
We do have declining enrollment as well. So that's another thing to be thinking about when we're looking at class sizes. And we are not looking at increasing class sizes to 30 or cutting teachers or anything of that nature. There are a lot of programs within the state that have much higher class sizes. And we know that in 4K, especially kindergarten and all those early grades, the lower we can keep our class sizes, the better it is for student achievement. And the academic outcomes that we are seeing in our 4K program is actually quite outstanding. They're reading CVC words, recognizing letters and sounds, and really getting that literacy foundation and math foundation that we need for our kids to excel throughout, all the way through 12th grade and beyond. So I don't have the exact numbers of what every 4K class is. I'm sure Ms. Stutzream knows that. But they are low right now. Anything else, JD? Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Fossbender. Next, we have the Special Education and Pupil Services Director Report. The report is attached. Are there any questions for Mrs. Burkhan? She is available if you have questions. Hearing none, we will go on to the Curriculum and Instruction Director Report. The report is attached, and Ms. Stutzream is present if you have questions. Seeing no questions, we'll move on to the Buildings and Grounds Director Report, and I believe Mr. Leiterman has some additional information he wishes to share with the board and our community.
So, just wanted to give you a quick update on task force, what we've done so far. Our most recent, our most recent meeting was on the 16th. We also had one on April 3rd, so we're moving at a pretty good pace. So, trying to keep everybody informed. Sometimes, seems like there's more information out there than we've all heard in a formal setting, but there's a lot of things going on with the task force, and we're trying to find a way to communicate that, excuse me, both efficiently with all the task force members, the committees, the board, and the community members. So one of the things that we have been working on is a mailer that kind of gives the highlights of where we've been and where we're headed. So that is an attachment in board docs. I hope that you can all open that up. The Donovan Group has designed this, and it just gives a little snapshot, like I said, where we've been and where we're headed. This is a draft. There is a couple things that I want to tweak just to make sure that we're being as accurate as possible. We've been working on this document for a couple weeks, and some of these things have changed as we've produced it. So before we send it out, we will make a few minor tweaks to that. I guess the biggest thing that I want to highlight is that on the meeting on April 16th, we had a lot of information primarily on the elementary schools, and we had kind of an impromptu vote of where the task force was at that time, given the information. In no way is this a complete finality of the work that they're going to do, but it is a good milestone and a good stepping stone that we want to make sure that everybody's aware of where we're at, given the information that we've seen so far. We're going to continue this process with our high school and the middle school in our upcoming meetings, but at this point, we kind of took a vote of where they thought that we should focus our efforts and make a recommendation to the board as far as, one was to explore running for a capital referendum for one new elementary school, or option B was to explore investing in our current 3 elementary schools, doing renovations to bring them up to code compliant and current learning standards. And that would include needing additions put on at all 3 of those buildings. The Blue Design Group gave a pretty good synopsis of what both situations would look like as far as total square footage, pros and cons, and did a exercise to reflect costs, not in certain dollars, but rather in a percentage of option A would be a percentage cost and option B would be a percentage cost. That the results of that were that it would actually be cheaper to go with one new elementary building versus look at renovating and adding on to the 3 current. Another important part of that was land, space, and usage at the current elementary sites. If we were to put additions on to the level that we need, those sites would not be able to handle and facilitate the things needed for a school on that site. The results of that vote were 18 people felt that pursuing one elementary school would be the best. One person felt that pursuing the additions and renovations would be best, and one said that they wanted more information so that they could take an educated opinion of the district as a whole. And I certainly understand that, and we're going to provide that. We're going to explore all that so that we can make one final educated decision as the district as a whole. But at this time, it seems very apparent that the task force is very strongly supporting looking to capital referendum for one elementary building. Any questions on that?
Jake, will you discuss the 120,000 square foot?
Yes.
In the 4th grade.
And then the 4th grade.
Okay, so one of the commitments that we feel very strongly, both from an administrative stance and from past conversations with board and committee levels and with the task force, is the fact of our 4th grade not being in our elementary schools is causing a huge issue with how the state views our report card and gives us progress on our educational efforts. That is pretty significant, both in the report card, but also from an educational stance and a developmental stance from those age of kids being together. The desire would be to bring 4th grade back, excuse me, and make a 4K4 setting, whether we would do additions and renovations or if we would do one building. So both scenarios would have the same exact grade configuration, which would be 4K through 4 at the elementary buildings. Is that
Yes,
good on
thank you.
that portion? The 120,000 square foot, that's one number that we do need to update. We've been working on that, like I said.
Can you back up and, I mean, I
Okay.
see the talking point, but can you explain it a little bit more? I think
So
it's important to
120,000 square feet is the projection that the Blue Design Group came up with for what that one building of 4K through 4 elementary would have to be sized at. As we worked through some programming and had discussions with Ms. Oginski, Mrs. Stutzrim, about how the educational picture all comes together and what spaces we need to do that most effectively, we've dialed that in a little more accurately, and it's more like 113,000 square feet. We're working on that number continuously, and I think that that'll probably tweak a little bit more as we go through some of the more design phases, but we want to try and get that updated so that when we send that out, that's the most current information. Do you want me to expand on that more in comparison to the
Yeah.
additions?
Yep.
Okay.
I think it's just helpful to get an idea of,
Yep. So when we look at what our current elementary schools are, they're roughly a combined square footage of roughly that 70,000 square feet. When we do building programming for a 4K through 4 at each one of those sites, we need approximately 52,000 square feet per site to accomplish the same education that we can provide in one centralized elementary building. So when you look at that 52,000 square feet per site, that combines to roughly 156,000 square feet needed in the 3 elementary site setting. So that leaves approximately 85,000 square feet that we would have to put on in additions in that scenario.
In the scenario of additions to the current buildings?
Yes.
Yep, okay.
So when you look at operating 3 buildings at 52,000 square feet for a total combined of 156,000 square feet versus operating 1 building at whether it's 120 or 113,000 square feet in one setting, there's a lot of efficiencies, just the efficiency of not having to maintain heat and operate, you know, roughly 75% of the square footage in the 1 building setting compared to 156,000. So there's some efficiencies that are very easy to see just on the surface when you look at those numbers.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do want to say that if anybody here is wanting to be a part of the granular part of this, where they go down deep with the Blue Design Group, May the 6th, 6 o'clock at West Elementary is our next task force meeting. It's still open to anybody who wants to be a part of that task force. Jake, can you just real quickly touch on the building, the structure of the additions at each facility, how that's going to take a 3-year process, and why that will take a 3-year process, if that were the route to go?
Yeah, when we look at how we would have to add on to these current elementary buildings, I'm going to focus mainly on north and east because they're very similar as far as how their properties are landlocked. West provides a little bit easier route, but still not to the level that a properly sized site would. So when you look at east and north, basically off of what I can remember, if you look at the size of the site in relation to the footprint that the building would take, particularly at north, I believe that ratio was about 70% coverage. So that means that of the given land we have, 70% of that land would be just building. Now that doesn't take into consideration utility easements, setbacks based on building codes, emergency vehicle easements, playground, parking, any of that. That is just the footprint of the building. So when you look at trying to fill, if you take a lot and fill 70% of it with a building, and you start looking at how you have to conduct excavation practices, putting cranes up, moving supplies around, the actual work needed to be done just to construct that, you only have 30% of that footprint to even operate on. That is not enough room. So you're looking at storing materials off-site, taking fill off-site, moving it back and forth. That in itself drives the cost of construction up. On top of that, when you look at how we're structured with our school year, we really only have about an 8 to 10 week window of true summer where our buildings would be unoccupied. Of that 8 to 10 weeks, we have a lot of work that my staff does on a normal basis to get ready, do deep cleaning, prepare for the next year. So when you look at starting to put an addition on and remodeling, there's really no way that you can get that work done in that 8 to 10 week window. So at each of those sites, we would be looking at having to take those students and house them somewhere else for a school year. We don't have that location. So I don't know what we would do to accomplish just that, and that's a pretty big important part, because where are those kids going to get an education for a year while we're busy doing the construction part of that? On top of it, we wouldn't be doing all 3 of those at one time for those same reasons. So this would be a process that we would do one school in the first summer, the second school in the second summer, the third in the third summer. So that would take a 3-year window. We would have students displaced from their school buildings in an alternative location, which I don't know where we could do that for a year, and all the complexities and increased cost of that style of construction, it would quickly add to the expense of that option. And we didn't even factor that portion in. We were just saying, if we could remodel and put additions on in a normal setting, that's the number that we use, trying to keep everything apples to apples and very transparent and make sure that that's the right solution. But when you add those dynamics in it, it will increase that cost quite a bit.
Correct.
Yeah, as Mr. Pyatt said, we have done a lot of work. There's a lot of granular detail out there. The Blue Design Group will certainly talk down to every nut and bolt that you want to hear about, but let us know. You got to get engaged. You got to let us know that you want more information. I'll be willing to spend as much time as anybody wants, and I'm sure the task force team will as well.
Jake, what's the best argument for doing it as opposed to doing nothing? Are you more worried about the not having enough space, or the condition of the buildings, or the?
Can you clarify your question, doing it or doing nothing, meaning
Doing, leaving the buildings as is versus.
Just complete status quo.
Compared to building a new building.
The biggest thing is we are not providing the educational resources or environment for our youngest learners. We're doing them a disservice by expecting them to learn in the environments that we have for them right now. And when you look at any program, whether it's educational, building a house, raising your own kids, starting a company, I don't care what analogy you want to use, if you don't put your most of your time and effort and resources into that foundation, you cannot expect the top end of that to succeed. And when you look at what we've done in our district over the last 30 years, probably 50 years, we have put more money into our high school and our middle school students than we have in our elementary students. And then we wonder why we have the performance problems that we do. The foundation of education needs to start at our youngest ages, and we are not doing them justice in what they deserve. That has to be fixed.
Any other discussion for Jake? Does the Donovan Group need anything from the board to put this mailer out? No? Okay.
I appreciate your update, Jake. I think it's really helpful. I am not actively involved in the task force, just simply allocating my time. Things that stood out to me were 70% of a lot being just the physical structure and the increased costs for building and the transportation of materials and things like that. It's not something I would think of. I don't have that knowledge base. So I appreciate that feedback. There was another point too, but I'm completely blanking on it at the moment. So, green space was tied to that. I know green space was brought up initially in preliminary discussions, and the lack of green space in the elementary areas. So that's, for me, stood out as an additional concern, because we don't alleviate that barrier that we currently have. We maybe almost make it worse.
Definitely would make it worse.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Jake.
Okay, and up next is the Superintendent Report, and I'm probably going to combine the first two bullets together. So back in probably December, the central office team, along with building principals, started the work to look to right-size our district. And what that means is each year there should be a review of enrollment, instructional priorities, and staffing, and you should make accommodations based on those two things primarily. Point being, when you look at, just take one elementary building, for example. If you have a first grade class that has 200 students in that grade level, and the class beneath it coming up that has 150, you can't justify keeping the same number of staff for that upcoming class as what you did with the others. So with licensure, teachers are licensed a variety of ways, so you have to look at when you're hiring people, what license they have, so that you have some flexibility in that movement when the enrollment ebbs and flows, as it does, and it always has. So we started the work with the building principals with doing a book study around right sizing, and Alan Odden gave us some research-based or evidence-based strategies to determine the appropriate amount of staff and things to look for in making sure that you're providing a quality education with poverty students in mind. So we started working on that and looking to determine what things we needed to do. Maybe there might be things we needed to add, things we needed to take away. And we collaborated with building principals, and they started the ball rolling with submitting a list of staff to us for consideration. Now, that was not the be-all, end-all list of staffing. It was just the starting point of these are to consider. So in looking at that consideration, we looked at things such as their licensure. So if people hold dual licensure and they have no discipline problems, no attendance problems, those are the quality staff we want to be sure that we're retaining in our district. So we went through a process to determine all of those things and looking at licensure to make sure that we're holding people in the right positions to ensure that our students are getting a high-quality education. We have been working on this for months, like I said, and most districts do this annually. I am not sure how many times this has happened for Antigo, but it should be an annual consideration, especially with declining enrollment. So we went through the process to determine what positions were filled with ESSER funds, because all school districts were notified when ESSER funds were released. We have you take caution in using this money to hire staff with ESSER funds, because if you do that, you are going to face what is known as the fiscal cliff, because as Mrs. Fossbender shared with us, we got $4.8 million. We're not going to have that additional $4.8 million after the end of this school year because it has to be expended. Therefore, when positions were hired with ESSER funds, it was under the knowledge that positions would have to be cut because we could not sustain them within our current budget. So Mrs. Verhagen and I have been meeting with staff. There were multiple phases of this. We've completed phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 2 was to notify our licensed staff of, we have come to the conclusion that we will be cutting this position and offer people the opportunity to either resign or go forward with non-renewal. And that is a personal choice, and it's something that we were advised by our board attorneys that that was the process that we should take as well. So once that was completed, then our next step in the process is to then start working on our support staff, because there were numerous support staff hired with ESSER funds as well. So through all of this process, there has been several communications out to the entire district. There's been newsletters, there have been specific emails notifying them so that we could be transparent and no one would feel like the rug was being jerked out from under them, because it's a very difficult decision to make, to have to cut someone's job because it impacts the livelihood of that family and it has an impact on our community. So it's not something that we take lightly. So again, we finished that, and on Friday, I'll skip down to the end. On Friday, Mrs. Fossbender, Mr. Leiterman, and myself did a presentation for the entire district during professional development. We talked about budgeting. We talked about the ESSER cuts. We talked about the task force and where we are up to date. Then after that, we met with the elementary staff to give them their assignments for the following year so that we could try to make sure everyone got the same message at the same time, because with cutting those positions, that meant there had to be movement. So that left open positions, so we wanted to make sure we had the right people in those spots. So Friday, we presented that to our elementary staff all at the same time so that everyone got consistent messaging. And it seemed to go as well as possibly could be, because again, it's a difficult task, but it also is something that through the licensing process, elementary teachers especially typically are pretty flexible because they have such a wide range in their licensure for the most part, unless you have someone that has an early childhood, like 3-year-old to kindergarten license or 3rd grade. So after that was completed, then the next thing we looked at was we talked with staff at the high school and at the middle school. And one of those was working around creating an improved model of what we offer for credit recovery. So we are not doing away with the WINGS program. That was never a consideration, nor was it ever a conversation. And we are looking to expand that because we do have a large need for credit recovery and alternate education programming in our high school for our high school students. So we are working to enhance that offering. It's not finalized, but we have started working on it. Ms. Stutzerim and I met with some high school staff and started the ball rolling. There was some enthusiasm around it, so I'm really excited for what the future holds for alternate programming for our students at the high school, so there will be more to come around that as well. I also want to point out that in all of these positions, the shifts, the changes, the non-renewals or the resignations, the cutting of the positions, no coaching positions were ever cut. So those positions are still available and were not in any consideration of any of this work. Let's see what else. Oh, one thing I want to make everyone aware of, and this may be more for our community than just an update for the board, but just to let everyone know that the reason for us changing the board meeting to the 23rd was to allow Mr. Peterson to be able to participate in tonight's board meeting and give him the opportunity to take his seat. So we found it necessary to move the board meeting for that purpose. And also there was a question around board members using computers, and I just want to let everyone know that the reason for that is because all of our documents for many, many, many years are housed in board docs, which means all of the information that they need to make data-driven decisions is electronic. So they have to have their computer to be able to access all of that information. So just put that out there for our community. And I don't think I have anything else. Do you have questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So in your report, you talk about the WINGS program growing, and that's wonderful, and that we don't want to, we have no intentions of eliminating that position. However, I guess I also have a difficulty understanding why we would be eliminating the position that is really running that program when, what would be the point of replacement?
So first of all, we had to make budget cuts.
Understood.
So that was part of that, but also part of that consideration, again, was looking at licensure, because we do currently have some staff who do not possess license. So through the whole decision-making process of looking at licensure, any discipline, attendance issues, those were all factors in the whole decision-making process. I also am a big believer in building a system that is dependent upon the system, which means it's not dependent upon a person. If you build systems that are dependent upon a person, you are setting yourself up to be unsuccessful, because none of us are guaranteed tomorrow. So if that happens, then what happens to the program? Does it cease to exist? And that's not a chance we should be taking. So we're looking to build a system that will be effective for all of our students who are needing an alternate programming. Good questions, though.
That's all.
I guess I have a question too, maybe two. You said that,
You want to pull your mic to you, please? Thank you.
you said that the coaching wasn't considered in the situation?
We did not make any cuts to any coaching positions.
Do you mean staffing coachings or baseball coaching?
Well, I guess the point I want to make is, if you have a guy that's doing a really good job, maybe he's not certified yet, but he's working toward his certification, and he's doing a good job in extracurriculars for us, maybe we need to make an exception to the non-licensure thing, especially if he's working towards that, and seems to be doing a really good job. Now we got to replace him too, in 2 spots.
I do want to remind the board that personnel matters about an individual personnel cannot be discussed with specifics in an open session meeting. Closed session, we can talk about personnel issues the whole time we're in closed session, but personnel matters cannot be discussed in open session. That's per state statute. That's not our law.
Sometimes it's easier to say you're sorry than ask permission.
So I think that's a good question, but again, you have to rely on the process that we took, and there were several factors put in place, and you have to consider not just one staff member, but the entire district. So we can't look at it from the lens of just one person in one classroom, but the entire district as a whole, because there were people shifted from one building to another to make sure that we had people in the right seats across the whole district. So it's not just operating in silos.
I just feel that if we want to become a destination school district, like I've heard at board meetings previously, coaching is important to our community. And if we get good coaches, that used to be the first question I was asked when I got hired. Was I willing to do those extracurriculars? I don't see a lot of people willing to do them anymore. So I think coaches in general, not just one, in general, band directors, choir directors, the play people are hugely important, and those things need to be given a large amount of consideration, in my opinion.
I just want to add also that I completely and wholeheartedly support the WINGS program, and I think alternative education today, with the state of affairs and the situations that we have students in, is just beyond importance. And I just want to ensure, as a board member, that we are doing everything we can to make sure that that program is solid and that we have the absolute best staff running that, so.
Yep, absolutely.
Can you speak, I also strongly support the WINGS program, and I've been open about my concerns when we were discussing or informed of bringing the program on site. So I'm proud to say I definitely was proven wrong, and I'm open to sharing that. So I support WINGS. It's certainly produced very strong outcomes. I know that WINGS is also available for students beginning their junior year. So I'm wondering if you could share a little bit, and I know more information to come, but in your report you talked about allowing for more students to be served and more alternatives. We have students that are credit deficient waiting to start their junior year to even become eligible for the WINGS program. So we are kind of missing, we have a gap there. And I'm wondering or hopeful if maybe allowing more students to be served might maintain the current WINGS program, but also target students sooner so they don't have to wait till their junior year of high school when they're severely credit deficient before they can get that alternative programming.
Yes, that is correct, and that is something that we are looking at, because we all know, as being a student prior, that if you come in and you are a senior and you have 2 credits, what's the chances of you being able to complete those credits and graduate on time? So students are coming in with the idea that this is something I can't accomplish. It's overwhelming, it's not doable. And we want to make sure that we're offering something ahead of time, even before their junior year, to catch students before they get so far behind they can't get caught up. Because the end goal in mind is to make sure that everybody is ready to be either in a career when they leave our building or ready for college, and that they graduate with their peers. That is a priority. So yes, making sure that we're expanding that will help us to meet the needs of more of our students instead of a select few, because we have a small program offering right now.
Thank you.
How many students are in wings currently, and how many are on the wait list?
I am not sure about the wait list. Ms. Studstrom, do you know the wait list?
The wait list is pretty large, but again, you have to wait till you're a junior, so that is,
To get on the
we have
list.
students that are on track, quote unquote, to get into wings based on their credits currently at like a 9th and 10th grade, which is unfortunate, and that's what Ms. Lozinski is talking about, is that we don't want to wait till we're 11th graders and have 1 credit, 2 credits, that we want to make sure we catch them sooner. We do have a substantial wait list. We have some students that have completed their credits and then they're now in the workforce and getting checked on throughout the community, but still enrolled here. We're waiting for a graduation and things like that this semester as we head towards May and to graduation. So technically on-house, like in-house, or still within the program, but outside, still working, if that makes sense. And everyone has like different pathways through. So what we're saying is that alternative programming can look very different. You have your GED or your GEDO program, you have your HSED program. You can also have just an alternative pathway through school, and then you can also have credit recovery. So when you look at alternative education, I'm not sure what the past has held for Anago, but right now we just have an alternative program that does that GEDO and HSED, and we would like to expand that for some of our students, that's the route. I'm working with one girl right now who's working on, she's an 11th grader, credit deficient. We're looking at what is the next step for her to make sure that graduation, in whatever form that looks like, is available for her, that she can then be successful as she moves into the world. So a lot of it is like an individual pathway for students based on their credits, based on credit recovery, based on maybe mental health needs, and based on how they want to graduate, or if they want to, get the ANGO diploma or do the HSCD or GEDO program. I know the tech offers stuff as well.
So 20 kids?
I don't have an exact number.
Yes.
I don't want to say an exact number right now. I think it's up to 70 this year. That
70.
have been through the program, that maybe aren't currently enrolled, but through first semester, second semester. Like I said, some graduate earlier based on recovering credits. Some decide to go to the GED program. Some go through the tech to do the GED and HSED. So.
And that's not counting the wait list.
So is there a wait list of juniors also, not just the 9th and 10th graders?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, and there's wait lists, yes, of seniors, because there's criteria on how to get into the WINGS program.
And is that another 70, or is that like
I don't
20?
have an answer on what the wait list looks like. I think we have a wait list, but then we have a lot of other students that are credit deficient, that are not even on that wait list, that we, like, if they continue on the path that they're on, that's where, that's the path they're headed, that we want to make sure we don't let them go down that path, and help them earlier.
So it's my understanding is prioritized for seniors first and then junior, sophomore. So I feel like the answer, you're asking a question that might be difficult to answer because of the logistical components with the criteria of who gets in the program and when.
I'm just more thinking.
Level of need?
It sounds like we need more
Yep.
staff to do it, not less. So I'm confused on how we're going to.
Agree.
Any other comments from the board? Okay, hearing none, we will move along to board action, item number 6. Letter A, consideration to approve marching band field trip. I will be looking for a motion.
I move the board to approve the marching band field trip in August of 2024.
Motion has been made by Jill. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yep, this was brought to committee with the recommendation or motion to bring to the full board.
Any other discussion of the motion on the floor?
Yeah, where are they going? I don't have that open.
They are going, Mr. Capel, you can, to Indianapolis for the drum corps.
It's a 3-day trip.
Come on down, Mr.
I'm not
Capel.
gonna, yeah, I was gonna say, I will not do it justice.
You've been waiting
that
to
you can,
talk to
and I
this
don't- I feel
item, so-
bad
That's okay.
Because you
That's okay.
presented to
I'll give
committee well, so.
the quick synopsis. So it's a 3-day trip to Indianapolis to see Drum Corps International groups. It's like competitive marching band. It's like the NFL of marching bands. So it's just top-notch kids, ages like 16 to 22, I think. So it's just a really unique opportunity to go see them up close and personal. We go to a free event where we stand this far away and hear professional musicians warming up and going through their show music and practicing marching, and taking 9 marching band students to go see and witness all of that, to kind of see what it takes to compete at that level, and kind of see what it takes to be dedicated to that. So then they bring all of that awesome knowledge back, but also it's just a really fun time, and they get to see all the awesome performances. So kind of expose them to a completely different thing. So that's what that is. If you have any other questions.
Any other questions for Mr. Capel? Hearing no question, the motion on the floor is to approve the marching band field trip in August of 2024. The voting device is now open if you are in favor of approving this trip. Would anybody like to change their vote? All right, the vote is now closed, and the motion carries. Have a good time.
Hey, thank you all so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Letter B, consideration to approve CTE incentive grant purchase. I will be looking for a motion, please.
I move the board to approve the purchase of Roland TrueViz 54-inch wide printer item number VG3-540 and consumables from Up and Running Solutions for $18,100 to be paid from CTE incentive grant funds.
Motion has been made by Dave. Would you like to speak to your motion?
It was presented at the Finance Committee meeting, and we brought it forward to the full board with all saying yes.
Any discussion of the motion on the floor?
Is this the grant that got emailed, Mike, or is this a different?
Mike, you want to come on down?
No. This is a piece of equipment in the
Skills lab.
lab. There's another word for it. Fab lab. That has basically been broken. They've tried to order parts. Some aren't available. They've made things to make it work, and it's just time to replace it. Right, Mike?
Any other questions or discussion on the motion on the floor? Hearing no questions or discussion, the voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? Okay, the vote is now closed, and the motion carries. Letter C, consideration to approve updated teacher contracts. I will be looking for a motion, please.
I move the board to approve updated teacher contracts.
Motion has been made by Dave. Would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Again, it came to Finance Committee from Kelly. I know she wants to talk about it. The big, what?
Verhagen, Mrs. Verhagen.
Mrs. Verhagen?
Mrs.
Oh.
Verhagen. Yes.
Sorry. I'm in the wrong spot. Sorry, Mrs. Verhagen. Basically, the teachers should understand that with the current salary schedule, those who are allowed to have movement within that schedule, these contracts, I believe, will show that they are getting an increase. But as administration looks at how much money we have, what we can do to add, hopefully, to the teacher contracts, it will happen later, but we have a deadline that we have to get contracts out to teachers. So with that, Mrs. Verhagen, if you want to add stuff, please come on down.
I do have a further question on that as well.
And as a reminder, after this was brought to committee, Mrs. Verhagen got input from some of our staff around revisions as well.
So what I presented was an updated contract language. It really didn't have anything to do with
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
salary schedule. Yep.
That's
so-
why I brought you down, because I'm getting looks.
Yeah.
We only had 4 things that came by us. I
Yeah.
apologize.
No, that's okay. So so what we did is we looked at our old contract, updated it, used some language, had it vetted by the lawyers, just looked to see if we could just update the language. No real big changes to the contracts. It was just strictly language, nothing with salaries that I did.
Correct. Bobby, you had a question?
I have a question on the lane movement. So we're not discussing that right
Yeah.
now?
The contract's not attached. So
No.
I guess
Not yet.
I hit the wrong button on my, I hit,
Are we on a different item?
yeah, we're on C and I hit E, so I apologize. I was a
Okay.
little bad with my mouse.
Gotcha.
Right, but there's still no contract attached. So are we approving just the summary sheet?
Those were reviewed during the committee meeting, correct?
But they can't be approved at the committee meeting?
What is your question, JD?
I just don't know what's changed in the contract.
So the language, just some of the language in the teacher contract, I know, do you recall any of the questions specifically that some of the staff, the feedback that they provided you?
So some of the feedback that I got, because I did ask some teachers and showed them what the new language was, what it would look like. One of them was on question and number 4, and I know you don't have it in front of you, but what it did is it talked about, it talked about duties, like being assigned to a hallway duty or supervision. So they did question that, just asking if they'd be compensated for those extra duties, supervision of hallways, cafeteria, corridors, just asking, just basically just kind of asking more questions about that. I think that we need to have something that gives the principals leeway to be able to assign those duties, which typically most places do anyway.
What happened with the liquidated damages?
We did increase the liquidated damages. Thank you for bringing that up. So we used to have, prior to July 1st, $500, July 1st to August 1st, $1,000, and end of August, or August to the end of the contract, $2,500. And we are looking to increase that to,
That's the deadline to resign? Is that what it is?
If you resign early, then you get.
So in the future, I would just appreciate if those language changes were shared with the full board. If the full board is expected to approve it,
Okay.
it would have been nice to have that attached.
okay.
Yeah, just, I'd
Do you
feel
want me
more
to-
comfortable.
What was it
voting on
changed
something
to?
if I saw it.
Yep. So the change, so then what what we're requesting to change then is the resignation period for the June 16th to the 30th is $1,000. July 1st to July 31st is $2,500. Then August 1st and thereafter, $4,000.
What's the first deadline?
The first deadline is prior to July 1st. And then July 1st to the 31st is the time period, and then after August 1st.
Is this similar to other districts around, the dollar amounts, or is this way higher, or is this?
I did do a survey. I have a group of HR people that I talk with, like Marshfield, Stevens Point, Merrill, things like that. We're pretty comparable. I wouldn't say that we're too high or too low. We're pretty middle of the road, pretty average.
With the proposed changes.
With the proposed changes.
It's weird because the district the teacher goes to usually pays them, right? So it's.
Yeah, yep.
Yes.
JD, we have a hard copy? Catherine did.
I have more hard copies if others want it.
Sure.
Scott, would you like a hard copy?
How about 2, please?
I think it's fair to mention also, in looking at the liquidated damages, we had staff input that there was a suggestion of even making it $10,000 for those who resign after the school year begins because it causes such a hardship on the other staff members. But we did not include that in there.
Move yours away.
It's okay. This is 23, 24, so this is 20.
I'm good, thanks.
And when do contracts need to be issued?
May 15th.
Have there been changes made to the language since the committee meeting?
No.
So it is the same as what it was when it was presented at HR Finance?
Yes.
Any other questions regarding the motion on the floor?
Is there any changes made to number 3?
That's kind of where then, so your number 3 and 20, in your 23-24 contract is comparable to number 4 in your 24-25 contract.
Thank you. I thought this was 2 pages. I appreciate that.
Are there any other questions of the motion on the floor? Okay, hearing no questions of the motion on the floor, you're voting to approve the updated teacher contracts. The voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? Okay, the vote is now closed. And all in favor, but one abstaining. The motion passes. Letter D, 4K program at All Saints. At this point, I would be looking for a motion, please.
I move the board approve the current 24-25 half-day program with All Saints that has been agreed upon under the current contract. Can I add to the motion?
It's your motion.
Okay, so furthermore, I would move that the board dissolve the program in its entirety for the 25-26 school year.
Okay, do you have that? Can you read that entire motion again so Michelle has that for the record?
So
please?
I move the board approve the current half-day program with All Saints Catholic School that has been agreed upon under the current contract for school year 24-25. Furthermore, I would move the board to dissolve that program the following year in its entirety, being the 25-26 school year.
Okay, Bobby's motion is to approve the current half-day program the way that the contract currently reads. That's with the same number of students, the 20 number of students,
Remains as is.
and remains as is. And then that this program dissolves after next year.
Correct.
When,
Is that what you, wait just one second, Scott. Is that what you have for the motion?
Yes.
Okay, Bobby, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Yes, I just want to add that as Ms. Sutsream and Ms. Fassbender expressed earlier, is that we have room and staff to house our own 4K program. And I don't see that it is, and all due respect to the program at All Saints, but if we have the room and the staff, I don't see supporting spending that money to supplement, if you will, a program outside our own district. I feel like we're here to grow our district, and that when we have staff and room and the capabilities to do that, we should be retaining and recruiting those students for ourselves.
Okay, Scott, I'll let you
So
speak.
it's something that we could revisit again later, too.
Absolutely. Actually, no, I'm sorry, not at this point. Any other discussion? Kristen?
Are we currently in the contract for the next year? Have we already approved that contract?
No, we're
No,
not.
this would be approving the contract for the next year.
So, not to a direct question to you, Bobby, but why would you want to approve it for 1 year and dissolve it next year instead of either approve it or not approve it this year? Or
Right.
reevaluate it before next year? I guess I don't understand the.
Right, because I feel that at this stage in the game, being almost May, those programs are already put in place for next year, and I think time-wise, we're a little late to reorganize those students and abrupt those families, and it's pretty late in the year to discontinue or revamp that whole program at this point. Maybe the other thing I want to mention, though, further is that we talked about this, and All Saints had asked for an additional full-day program instead of just the half-day that we're at. So that additional full-day program adds substantial cost as well. Possibly some help from the business director that could maybe explain some of the costs that are associated with that program and that what our district is paying for versus having them on site, I guess.
Can I also ask one question before you answer? I feel like it'll tie in. Is there another partnership with a 4K program aside from the current partnership with All Saints?
There is not. So in the past, there was some community-based sites at Head Start, Leroyer, All Saints, and then I believe we housed one at the middle school. Historically, we have not had space within our own elementaries to be able to house our 4K program. And there was quite a significant change within the state as far as putting money into 4K programs to boost student achievement, and because there is also a child care crisis within our state and nation. So districts were starting to reallocate funds, like we've been talking about, to be able to support the programs and the different approaches to be able to provide programming to improve student achievement. So we went to full-day programs, did some district reallocation to be able to make space for those 4K programs. We also reallocated funds to be able to support having a full-time aide and a full-time teacher in each of those classrooms, which one of the public comment people talked about a little bit earlier is that one of the flaws in our system is that we do not get full FTE reimbursement for 4K. So those 4K programs actually cost the district significantly more and actually cost significantly more to run. But because of the benefit to our students and community, we have reallocated funds to be able to do that. So to answer your question, yeah, this is the last one. I'm not sure why that reasoning was, but all of the rest of them have been pulled into our own elementaries. And as far as different costs, one of the things that St. John's is asking for is a 6% increase to the overall tuition. They've asked for increases several years, and then also, like you said, an additional full-day program would then move to about $60,000. So basically double what the impact to our district would be when we have the space within our own. Additionally, we spend money on curricular resources, assessments. We also house their entire learning space. So if anyone is aware of 4K and kindergarten type of classrooms, they have significantly more pieces within it, including just like all the rest of technology, but they also have additional learning spaces such as blocks, manipulatives, different learning centers. So it is significantly more expensive to house and furnish those types of learning environments as well. So we do all of that for that space that could be brought in and supplement the classrooms that we have on site to provide more updated furnishings for the students within our program.
Thank you.
I want to go back to Kristen and make sure that you got your question answered for the motion that's on the floor from Bobby.
Do you agree that it would be too late to pull the contract for next year? Or not? I shouldn't say pull it because it hasn't been signed yet.
I can only speak to me personally. As a building principal, could I make do? Yes, because I still feel like there is enough time and enough advance notice to plan and prepare and still have things in place for next year should they choose to create their own programming.
And then,
But that's me. That's not, everyone isn't the same. People have different philosophies around those things.
follow-up question, if we went forward with the half-day option with All Saints for next year, would we have the ability to have a half-day option within the district outside of All Saints for that? Is there a need, is there a want, is there a like, is there a possibility for a half-day option?
I do not feel at this time there is a need nor a want for a half-day program, because I feel like if that were the case, that parents, families could still come and pick their students up at a half-day. One thing that's unique about our programming that we offer in the district is that students have 5 full days, which is not really something that all districts offer. And all of our 4K students are also eligible, well, they engage in the same specials that they do with kindergarten. They're in the same building with kindergarten, so they have leaders that they can learn from as well, but they can engage in those related arts to help them develop. And if you have a different setting other than that, sometimes you risk losing that.
And within what you said, parents would have the option to pick up their child half-day.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
One more question.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm just curious if we have any way of predicting or knowing of those students that are attending at All Saints 4K program currently. Do they come onto the Antigo district at kindergarten? Or are they likely to stay?
We could dig the data up. We would be able to find it. As far as having access to it right now, we do not.
Right, because what I'm getting at is then how much more funding are we losing over those following years?
Right.
If those students don't come to us until.
Right, and typically that's the thing. You know, most families prefer that when they get a young child established, that's where they typically would tend to stay. I can't speak for all families nor the parochial schools, but trending would be the most trending thing I would think would happen, yes.
So that's a concern of mine as well, is that we're losing those students or a good part of them over the number of years that follow 4K.
I just think from a public relations standpoint, it's a good idea to stay for another year, especially if we're proposing a referendum and stuff. We don't need to lose maybe voters at this time. Just my own opinion.
Yeah, I will just share that I would support the current contract, or the contract as presented for the upcoming school year because of the time in the year. And I'll also say that this was brought to the district in 2024, but we've also done our due diligence to do the background information gathering and follow-up and then bringing it to committee. So we do have ownership in that. It was brought to us sooner, and we're just getting a potential vote now. So I do think for those reasons too, I am voting in favor of the current contract as presented. I struggle with the additional component to the motion because we do have a very positive working relationship with All Saints Catholic School, and I do think conversation regarding the contract and maintaining that rapport, and discussion, and even seeing if there's other solutions possible. I don't know what that is, but I would be in favor of that as well. I'm not making any sort of, I'm not alluding to continuing one way or another. I also will share that I did have conversation with Paul Galuska. I'm not going to speak for him. I'm going to share that full days are the identified need per his feedback, and that there is discussion occurring from All Saints Catholic School side that should our board choose to continue with the current half-day schedule, there's conversation to expanding to a full-day option for those students, but that would not be at the cost of the district. So I think that's important to share. I'm not going to speak for All Saints, but that conversation is occurring because of the need verbalized by families.
Jill, to clarify, are you saying that you are in favor of the motion as the half-day or in the favor of the contract for the full day as presented?
Thank you. Half-day.
Thank you.
That is the motion on the floor, the half-day, correct.
So how many, where do we have 4Ks right now? Which elementary schools?
All of them.
All three. And 2 in each. Okay, so we have six sections. How many students in each of those?
So we do enrollment kind of in the curriculum office every 2 weeks. So as of the last 2 weeks, we update numbers. We are sitting at 32 at East. We are sitting at 29 at North and 34 at West. So currently, we would have space, like right now, for about 14 students if we wanted to cap at 18 students per classroom. We do have, each classroom has a teacher and an aide, so that, I mean, you don't want to go up, but if you had to add a student here or there, that wouldn't be a problem. We do have students that leave throughout the year as well, that our numbers do shift. So those are our current numbers.
But there's 24 students at All Saints right now.
There are 24 at All Saints, and our contract says 20.
So those 10 students, we're going to fit them in?
Say that again.
I'm just, if we have that many students looking for
Yeah.
4K services, we're just going to raise the cap?
Yeah, there's no cap on 4K. It's just what we kind of say from 4K till first grade is 18 is kind of our number that we stay within. We do have students at the 19 class, or 19 students in a first grade class, 22 students in a first grade class, so the numbers do vary. We try to keep around 18 as we do enrollment.
When you were talking before, you said 60% of 11,000 is 6,600, but the cost is only 1,200. So how are we losing money even if we double it?
So when you look at currently having space within all of our classrooms, we are furnishing an entire classroom with technology, with furnishings such as those learning centers, furniture, rugs.
But that stuff is already purchased, right? That's a sunk
Right.
cost.
But we also have classrooms within our own district that haven't been updated, whereas All Saints was updated last year, I believe, and went about $14,000 over budget. And that's not including the entire amount that was spent there or has been spent in the past. The other piece is that when we're thinking about right-sizing our district and we're looking at making cuts that we don't want to make for staff, and we look at how salary, we want staff to have salary increases, we're facing health insurance increases of 12.5%. That $60,000 is something that we're spending out when we could house our students within our own district, and that $60,000 would come back into our district that could go to the expenses that we already have. So that's an additional expense.
But I'm asking you about pure profit. Let's assume all these kids stay at All Saints. Then how much money do we lose?
Yeah, but we
It's
don't
more, but I think what she's saying is it's more than just money. If you look at, like what Bobby said about the longevity of it, what is the likelihood that they're going to be coming to our district?
Correct.
Once they start there.
So
So then that's additional cost. We're missing out on enrollment potentially.
Correct. But if they're trying to go to All Saints, they're probably already trying to go to All Saints, and they'll just pay for all day. So then we're going to lose that .6, we're going to lose that 6,600 on those 24 students, just we're going to lose it a
We
year
can't,
earlier.
we can't predict what that's going to look like. You could have some families that prefer to have full day and prefer to stay. I mean, it's a hard predictor to say that none of them will come to our district. I think looking at what knowledge we have in front of us is that if that contract was to, if the proposed contract, so I just want to talk about that too, as far as what you do make a motion for, as far as what the current language is. But what they're proposing is a 6% increase to what we already currently have. And then an additional to that is an additional expense of about $3,000 total for each student.
And how much additional state funding did we get? More than 6% or less than 6% per student?
I would have to do all those calculations and present it to you.
We got $400 more at
but-
least, right?
So currently, right now, though, it's an additional $60,000 and an additional however much it is to,
Well, an additional 30,000.
right, but the full day would be an additional 60. So yes, if you stuck with the additional, with the half day, it would be 30,000, which is funding we are expending out instead of keeping it within our district and it not being an expense. So when we're looking at cutting programs, when we're looking at cutting staff, when we're looking at salary increases, that's 30,000. That I know that it doesn't seem like a lot, but all of these pieces, when you're looking at aligning your district, do matter as far as the overall picture, so.
Okay, I'm just worried you're not accounting for the
So I understand what
practical
you're
effects of
saying.
what
You're
happened
saying
here.
if they
You're gonna-
open and
you're
roll
gonna
out,
lose these
how
20
much money would
kids.
we lose?
Yes,
I
and you're
understand.
gonna lose $4,000 a kid, and you're gonna be worse off
For 4K.
for
If
4K.
they
And then
all
we'll
choose to
lose-
stay.
Right now, we're getting the 4K financially.
Correct. We're getting the
But we're
benefit.
still losing K through 8.
Yes, but that's the
So we're
same thing.
adding a
gonna-
year
Right, how many kids are we
lost.
gonna lose to the new charter school in Mattoon? Do we have any indication yet?
I don't think we can predict all of those pieces. I think what we need to do is focus on aligning our resources and our financial resources and our educational resources to maximize what we're doing within our district. Because the more we increase our student outcomes, the more we increase our culture within our own district, the more we allocate funds so that we can build the facilities that our students deserve, the more we can do all of the retention strategies that we'd like to do by realigning our finances, we will be able to grow our district and grow the impact that we have within our students that right now is currently lying very low within the state. So when you look at why do families want to open and roll out, why do they want to go to different schools, there's a lot of different reasons. Some might be religious, some might be student outcomes, some might be location because that's where the families go. But all we can do is focus on aligning our financial resources to best impact our kids and our staff. And so I think that's the overarching, like, we can't predict who's going to go to Mattoon. But if we continue with low student outcomes and decrepit facilities and all of the things that we have because we aren't aligning our funds, we can predict that people may not want to come here. So, all things to think about.
I guess I just wouldn't underestimate the dollars and cents value of good public relations.
I agree. That's
And
a decision you all
that
can make.
worries me. I like Bobby's motion because of that.
Well, we can amend the motion. I'm going to amend the motion to go back to the original.
Which is, explain that.
Okay, so JD is amending the motion on the floor to read what's on the computer?
Yes.
The amendment to the motion now is I move the board to approve the current half-day program that has been agreed upon our current contract. Now, that is the discussion around our motion that we're talking about. No longer is Bobby's motion on the floor. This motion now supersedes as this is amended to the board approve the current half-day program that has been agreed upon by our current contract, period.
So you're just dropping the further piece?
Correct.
Okay, and how long is this contract in place?
1 year.
Year by year.
So currently, we do not have a contract with them for the 24-25 school year, so I want to make sure that that's clear. It's the language around the contract. We have not signed anything, because what All Saints has brought to us is 3 options. The option of keeping the program the same, half-day, same amount that we pay. They also want the same half-day at 6% increase, or the full-day option. So before we sign a contract, I'm not going to sign anything without having board approval of what the board has decided, and then I will go to Mr. Galuska and I'm sure he goes to his board regarding that, and then we sign a contract that has that language in it. So I just want to be very clear, we don't have a contract for the 24-25 school year. We are finishing out our contract from the 23-24 school year, which was halftime.
So what I'm hearing JD say is you want to agree to the current half-day program without an increase.
I want the 6% increase.
Okay, so you can word that into your motion.
Yes.
Just no current contract signed.
Nothing with the current one.
I move the board to approve the current half-day program for the next school year with the suggested 6% increase.
Okay, so the amendment is I move the board approve the current half-day program with the suggested 6% increase. Correct? Would you like to speak to your motion now, JD? Your amended motion?
I think we should just solve this problem first and then continue the conversation for next year. We'll know if they're going to build a new school. I'm sure that'll make a big difference in people's opinions. People might be dying to go to a new school, so that'll be easier to, instead of deciding right now, we might as well do the easy thing. And we'll avoid the bad PR of making all those 24 votes or 50 votes.
24 votes.
You can lose by 50 votes in a referendum, so we might need those.
Would anybody like to speak to the amended motion on the floor? Jill?
Oh, sorry.
Jill was starting.
I did look at the contract from last year, what we approved. No, I did historical data, I don't know where. I mean, I looked through our minutes and agendas. My point is, I didn't see a 6% increase requested when we approved it last year. So I don't know if that's consistent, but it was requested this year.
It's new.
So on the topic summary sheet, you'll see kind of the historical that we found regarding the past contracts. The 2021 school year, it was $975 per student. The 21-22 school year, it was $1,050, so there was an increase there. The 22-23 school year, it was $1,118, which was the same as the 23-24 school year. So for whatever reason, again, I was not here, those are the contracts that I have. There was not an increase between the 22-23 school year and the 23-24 school year. We are still paying $1,118 per student for the 24 students, which adds up to $26,832 for this contract year of 23-24.
It is the contract for 24 students, or is the contract for 20?
The contract says 20 in the contract that was signed. However, there are 24 students enrolled within the program, 4K program at All Saints.
Any other discussion on the amended motion that's on the floor?
Yeah, what's the total number of students this would be, the contract would propose?
So the contract has not been signed yet, so then
Correct.
that means we could then negotiate the number of students and cap it at 20 or cap it at 24 or whatever the board decides. So that would be part of the language that we would need to talk to All Saints about regarding how many students we are going to pay for.
Okay.
We also have to.
Do you think they're going to get more or less, or?
That I do not know. I don't know their projection. I know that there are 4K students who already have signed up for All Saints because they do enroll through us and we get the paperwork for it. But I don't have a final number on that yet.
I would just say that I agree with the portion of the amendment that we reevaluate it next year and taking out the language of already deciding what we're going to do for next year. I do not agree with the 6% increase. If we're given an option for a less expensive option, I think we should take the less expensive option.
I will echo that.
Is that a new motion?
I don't think you can.
I'm just going to vote no to yours.
It can only be
and make my
amended
own.
one more time.
Oh,
I'm just saying.
What did you say?
It can only be amended one more time.
I'll amend the motion one more time.
Okay, so Michelle, help me keep this in line. We are now making an amendment to the amendment for the motion on the floor. So the second amendment to the motion on the floor that JD put the first amendment is now, Bobby?
So I'm going to move the board to approve the current half-day program as is, that has been agreed upon. Let me start over.
Okay.
So I move the board to approve the current half-day program that has been agreed upon our current contract with no changes.
Okay, that really wouldn't be an amendment. You would just vote no for the amendment on the floor, and then his amendment would fail.
And then we'd have to make another one.
Absolutely.
Whatever order you want to do it in. Okay, then we should vote on his or this.
Okay, does everybody know where we are?
I'm sorry, say that one more time. We're voting on my amendment.
We're voting on your
We're voting on your amendment.
Okay.
Because the amendment that Bobby was offering is just the exact opposite of what you stated for your amendment. Okay? Of taking out the 6%.
It's the same, but you're taking out the.
It's the same, but you're taking out the 6%. So if you don't want JD's amendment, you vote no, then you can offer that amendment.
That would be a new motion then,
Yes.
correct?
No, that would be an amendment, because if his fails, we go back to the main motion.
Okay,
You got it?
yep.
Okay.
JD, yours has the 6%.
Yes.
Yes.
She wants to have no 6%. So why can't that be amendment? It's still different.
Change is
This
a
is
change.
the original motion to,
No, the original motion is to furthermore decrease or cancel it for next year.
Yes, the
That was-
original motion is what,
yeah, sorry.
that's the original motion is what Bobby first offered.
Amend that motion, or that original, after we say no. Correct?
You guys are,
You're making it more difficult than it
Yes,
needs to be.
that's what I thought. Okay.
Let's vote no for
I'm ready
JD
to
and we'll
go.
make a new amendment.
well, I
Or
mean,
yes, if
that's-
you'd like to.
That's a,
or abstain.
JD,
Or abstain.
I'm gonna defer back to you, because I think you are correct. Bobby's amendment can stand, because it does change the amendment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is she saying again?
I'm saying to go back to the motion that's in front of you on board docs, if you have it. It reads, I move the board to approve the current half-day program that has been agreed upon our current contract. Essentially, what that's doing is just eliminating my furthermore piece for the next school year, in which we will revisit
Okay, so
earlier in the year.
now the amendment that you're discussing is the motion that's in the computer in front of you.
Correct.
All right? Any discussion on that amendment?
Did you withdraw yours?
No?
Okay,
Nope.
just checking.
No discussion on that amendment? Okay, you are voting upon, I move the board to approve the current half-day program that has been agreed upon our current contract. Everybody understand? Okay, the voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? All right, the vote is now closed. The motion passes. Or the amendment passes. Now, that amendment, help me, Michelle.
Michelle?
Dan, I'm just still.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
That amendment now becomes the amendment to supersede JD's. So now we got to vote on that again. I move the board to approve the current half-day program that has been agreed upon our current contract. That's what you're voting on. Ready?
So that means we're
Voting
not
on-
going to vote on JD's.
You're voting on making
JD's
this
done.
the amendment.
You're voting on making this the amendment, and if, I'll give you direction of what happens if it passes or fails from here. All right, that's what you're voting upon. The voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? All right, the vote is now closed. And the amendment passes. Now, that amendment becomes the main motion.
Right.
So now, this time when you vote, the outcome of this vote will determine the 4K program at All Saints. Does everybody understand where we are? Yes. The motion is, I move the board to approve the current half-day program that has been agreed upon our current contract. That is now the main motion. Yes. For the 24-25 school year. All right? Okay, the vote is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? All right, the vote is closed, and the motion passes. Can we take a 10-minute recess? Yes. I really need to take a 10-minute recess. We will reconvene at 8:50. Okay, we will come back to order, please.
A whole lot. JD?
We'll be moving on to item E. Item E is consideration to approve ACP plan. I will be looking for a motion.
We're on letter E.
Letter E, yes.
I move the board to approve the proposed ACP plan for the Unified School District of Antigo.
Motion has been made by Jill. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, this was brought to committee with recommendation to bring to the full board. It's also a requirement, I had the language in front of me, sorry. Requirement for Wisconsin school boards to ensure boards are providing academic and career planning services for grades 6 through 12, which was discussed in committee.
Correct. Any other questions or discussion on the motion on the floor? Hearing no questions or discussion, the voting device is now open to approve the proposed ACP plan for the Unified School District of Antigo. Would anyone like to change their vote? Okay, the vote is now closed, and the motion passes. Letter F, consideration to approve pickleball club renovations. I will be looking for a motion, please.
I move the board to approve the Lang Lake County Pickleball Club to proceed with the project as presented with no cost to the district.
Motion has been made by Catherine. Would you like to speak to your motion?
This was brought up to committee. The Pickleball Club would like to resurface some of the courts that the district owns and turn those into pickleball courts for their club. This will be at no cost to the district. And Krieger and Steinfest is doing the work.
And this is at the J.C. Park.
J.C. Park, yes.
Any other discussion on the motion on the floor?
I would like to commend those representing the pickleball club. Thank you for hanging in there through this meeting to get to this agenda item. And I also would like to share my appreciation for that space. I will be voting in favor of it, and my hope is the rest of the board will as well, that that space will present nicer and be functioning, since the current state is not that. So thank you for hanging tight and for your work in bringing this to us.
I think any improvement to that property is welcome.
Any other discussion on the motion on the floor? I will say concur with what Jill said. Thank you for hanging with us and taking this property, as Scott said, and making improvements there. Though we won't discuss it tonight, I will be going to bat for some Fund 80 funds from Community Fund in the future to go toward this project. I believe it's worthwhile, and the district ought to invest some into this as well as other community organizations. You got my word. I'm going to do what I can to help that. Anyone else have any discussion? All right, the voting is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? The vote is now closed, and the motion carries.
Yes, I'll clap to that.
Thank you for doing what you're going to be doing over there.
Thank you, guys.
Letter G, consideration to approve middle school asbestos abatement bid. I will be looking for a motion.
I move the board to approve Mavo Systems in the amount of $96,790 to complete the asbestos abatement for the middle school windows project.
Motion's been made by Catherine. Would you like to speak to your motion, please?
No.
Is there any discussion on the motion on the floor? Hearing no discussion on the motion on the floor, the voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? The vote is now closed. And the motion carries. Thank you. Letter H, consideration to approve IT director position. I will be looking for a motion.
I move the board to approve the position of technology director.
Motion has been made by Catherine. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Mark Kautza is retiring. He's our current systems administrator. This position is to replace his position.
Any other discussion on the motion on the floor?
So what is the
Scott, go
difference
ahead.
between his job and, is you just replacing him, or are we changing the job description?
So what we are doing is we're looking to add an IT director. The current position is a systems administrator. We will keep that, but in collaboration with our current systems administrator, it was discussed how we can maintain the same number of staff, but divide duties differently. And a technology director oversees and does more with the educational piece than just the hardware networking position, if that makes sense. I know that's a little discombobulated, but it's to integrate technology into our learning environments. That will be a big focus, along with evaluating staff. They'll be over our library programs and digital citizenship as well.
Any other discussion of the motion on the floor?
What'd you say, Glenda? Evaluating instructional staff? Does that mean,
Any instructional staff that they supervise, because they would have some instructional staff underneath them.
Any other discussion?
So this person would be paid as an administrator?
They would have an administrator contract, yes.
Any other discussion? Hearing no discussion, the motion on the floor is to approve the position of technology director. The voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? The vote is now closed, and the motion carries. Letter I, first reading of policy 2271.01, Start College Now program. I will be looking for a motion.
I move the board to approve the first reading of policy 2271.
Oh, that was the wrong one.
Okay, what? Oh,
You're okay.
I'm going to start over. I move the board to approve the first reading of policy 2271.01, Start College Now program.
Motion has been made by Jill. Would you like to speak to your motion?
No.
Okay, this is the first reading of the policy. It does not go into effect until after our second reading, which will be next month at the May board meeting. Any discussion on the first reading of policy 2271.01?
May I ask a question?
You may.
Because this is the first reading, is this a new policy that was not in committee?
So it was at committee, wasn't it? The policy, it was at the policy committee meeting. It's the, we had to change it, if you recall, because of the welding program. Those students that are in that particular program earn more credits than what our current policy, so we weren't within policy. So the language needed to be
Okay.
changed.
Thank you. For the clarification, I didn't have anything in my notes on the policy committee meeting, so.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing no questions, the voting device is now open for the first reading of policy 2271.01. Would anyone like to change their vote? The vote is now closed, and the motion carries. Letter J, first reading of NEOLA update policies for the board, 33-1. I will be looking for a motion, please.
I move the board to approve the first reading of the NEOLA update policies for the board, 33-1.
Motion has been made by Bobby. Would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Just to clarify for the rest of the board that this was gone over policy by policy in the committee meeting. We did make some changes to a handful of policies, and those are all noted. Those changes were noted by Michelle. So before the second reading, I would encourage other board members that aren't familiar with them to take a look through that and know for sure what those changes are for the second reading. And just to be clear, there's 2 readings of policies. So there's the first time around, which is tonight. Second time around makes it real.
So where do I go to read that?
If you look right under public content, the directions are there on where to find these draft policies. Any other discussion on the motion on the floor for the first reading of the draft policies of NEOLA update? A lot of the changes are in these is language changes, punctuation changes, things that have been missed.
More concise verbiage.
More concise verbiage, correct. All right, the voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? All right, the vote is now closed, and the motion carries. Letter K, consideration to approve certified staff wage salary schedule. I will be looking for a motion.
I move the board approve the certified staff wage salary schedule for the year 2024-25.
Motion has been made by Dave. Would you like to speak to your motion?
I tried to about an hour ago, so I'll just let Kelly go.
Yes, so I just wanted to make a few things clear. We do have staff that are not currently on this salary schedule. So we do have to approve this current schedule as it is so that we can get contracts out by May 15th. But that does not mean that we're not looking to make additional contributions so that all staff within our entire district receive some sort of increase. So we do not want support staff to not have a increase because currently, right now, as the salary schedule shows, they only have a increase of about, I mean, there's quite a few different categories, but just as an example, in 2 years, they get a 50-cent increase, then they don't get another 50 cents increase till 5 years, then 10 years, then 15, and then I believe 20. So we need to look at both the certified staff that are no longer, that are beyond that last step, lane 8, step 3, to ensure that the staff that we have are currently, that are not on this step, do get an increase, as well as that support staff piece. So just to be a little bit clear, last year, the school board actually increased the entire salary schedule overall. And then additionally, the school board said, we would like to recommend that staff 15 years and above received an extra step. So that motion was made by the board to increase those, and that obviously passed. So this was a budget impact of about $574,000, almost $575,000. Last year, there was also an increase of our health insurance, about 12%, which was also an increase to the district of about $400,000. We are looking at those same types of increase, so I know that's the next topic, but I just want, when you're thinking about the different pieces that we're trying to put together to ensure our staff are not frozen or are not receiving anything for increases, we are looking at a 12.5% increase as well, which was negotiated down from a 22%, but we are not looking at increasing the contributions that employees would have to make to offset that. So what we are looking to do, like I said, was keep those, and you'll vote on that motion in the next thing, but this all kind of fits together, that you would be looking at those two pieces together. So just to be clear, we are also looking at the difference of contracted days for our staff. So this current year, there was 188 days. Next year, there'll only be 178 days. So we are not looking to decrease salary. We are still looking to increase salary and decrease those days, meaning that staff will not have to work on those additional 10 days. So just also a little bit of clarification, if people are not totally familiar with our salary schedule, year 1 and 2 staff increase $750. Every 3 years, they get a $2,500 increase, and then every year in between there is $1,000. So everybody in the salary schedule would still be getting an increase, and then like I said, we are looking at bringing back a recommendation once all of these pieces of the budget are put together as far as support staff, and looking at bringing back an additional recommendation for those staff that are beyond lane 8 and the support staff together. And then if there's anything additional that we can do, we'll look at that. And then contracts would be amended retrospectively. I hope that's clear. And also in talking to a lot of the staff who are veteran staff and have been here for many years, some of the things that were quite perplexing to us as we're trying to figure out why are some staff placed in different areas that may not match what their experience is, and all of those things. We're trying to rectify all of that as much as we can. We have come to the realization that that really isn't possible, so what we are going to have to commit to next year is redoing the salary schedule entirely, because it doesn't represent the staff that we have that are no longer on it, as well as the different specialists that we have. So we have speech therapists or counselors, or the different areas that require different certifications. And that's just one example. I mean, we have people who have specialty in chemistry or physics, or all of the different licensures that might require extra schooling and master's degrees and all those types of things. So we want to comprehensively come together with committees and look at redoing and revamping with a comprehensive audit of the area districts to bring back a recommendation for a comp plan for all staff. So without being able to do all of that this year, we are looking at bringing forth this recommendation for the time being.
I was very excited last year. This came from Finance Committee. We focused a lot on, was it last year or 2 years ago? I think it was last year, where we added the step for staff. My point is there was a significant focus on recruiting staff without experience that were starting at a higher wage than staff that have been here for a long time. And my struggle that I verbalized and fought for was recognizing the staff that have dedicated their entire career in our district, because they were heavily overlooked for a very long time. So my concern, and I guess I would like a better understanding of what might be proposed for those that are at the top, because those staff deserve to have an idea of what they should be able to expect, while also respecting you working throughout the numbers in the budget. But I'm just not comfortable having an idea of what that's going to ideally look like, a 2% raise for those at the top, or something? Like, is there anything you can give us on that?
So right now we have, with looking at like JD's question earlier, how much of a deficit are we looking at? So the biggest part of your entire budget is salaries and benefits, and that includes your health insurance as well. So in the past, what I'm learning from different veteran staff that have talked to me, part of the piece of why they weren't moving forward on the salary schedule was some years they were frozen due to the fact that there was health increases or other pieces that were absorbed within the salary increase. The salary wasn't increased because health insurance did. They didn't want to increase contributions or things like that. So I don't have an exact number for you as to what to expect because there's a chunk of money that has to be split between everyone. And so without being able to calculate what that's going to look like and look to see if it's equitable among the different staff members, we don't have an exact number. Otherwise, we would have brought that number here tonight.
We can't afford to lose any staff. I just strongly believe that we certainly cannot, we don't want to lose staff that are able to retire if they are interested and willing and wanting to continue to teach, because obviously their decision-making is really going to be based on
Right.
their numbers too and what makes sense.
So we are experiencing about a 400 to 500,000 additional health insurance impact that's going to be coming to the budget. So because of that health insurance increase, that $400,000 to $500,000 also could have gone into salaries. But when you look at the whole compensation package, that's part of having to look at what goes where, and we can't control what those increases are. It actually went from 22% to 12.5%. So I don't have an exact number at this time to say, here's what everybody at lane 8 and step 3 and beyond would get as an increase.
Can I add a
Can I ask
comment?
a question?
Mm-hmm.
I know health insurance is huge, and at the risk of making some teachers angry, guys, I used to argue with this all the time with when I was a union president and stuff. Have we ever looked into because one of the things that increases our health insurance, from what I remember, is once in a while you get a catastrophic case that just nails you. So have we ever looked at offering a stipend and saying, you guys go get your own health insurance? And look at, just do a cost comparison and find out what they would actually need, and maybe we wouldn't have such a high increase all the time.
We did talk with our consultants regarding that, and we also went to market to see what type of options we would have to make the most impact of discount for the district. And what is the piece of that is, the more people paying in that don't really need as much insurance coverage offsets the overall cost. So when you do give stipends out, those people are generally the people who don't have pretty high impact needs that would.
Saying give a stipend to everybody and say,
Right.
go find your own.
Oh, I see what you're saying, okay,
Don't tie it to
okay.
don't tie it to a group.
Oh, sorry, I
Say,
misunderstood that.
we'll help you with your health insurance. Because if you're healthy, you might come out way ahead.
All things to look at. At this point, I mean, that's something we can talk about in the future, but, another point to consider is if you want to increase contributions that staff make, currently we have not increased that, that would alleviate that $400,000 to $500,000 impact that we could then put onto salary schedule as well. I mean, those are all options. As of right now, we looked at creating a budget projection using, the numbers of losing that $4.8 million, cutting the least amount of staff as we possibly had, while still giving a salary increase to everybody and footing the bill of 12.5%, which our budget forecast had in 3%. So it's a pretty intense raise of
It's a high
impact to the
premium raise.
district.
But so it wouldn't be that hard to just, we have health information on all our employees, so pick 4, 5, 6 different people. Not necessarily names, but people of certain health profiles, and just say, hey, to an insurance company, what would this cost you? What would this cost this guy? What would this cost this guy? Because, I mean, the other end of this is these insurance guys are in it to make money. It's pretty easy when all they gotta do is negotiate with one group to represent 20 or 75, whatever we have, whatever number of people we have. Maybe if they had to negotiate with every one of those people would come out better.
While I know these two items are very closely connected, we got to remember the discussion is about the salary schedule, not the health insurance. But I know they're connected. That's why I've been kind of lenient to allow the conversation to go here. I think Bobby had something too.
I just had one point on the salary table, the lanes and the movement. And when everything hashes out and you get to a point where you have a better idea of numbers, and you're in a hurry because we got to get contracts out by May 15th.
Correct.
I understand that. So then you're going to have more work to do when you get there and you have to amend everything.
Correct.
We're not afraid of work, Bobby.
So, but my point being is that when you get to that place, if it looks like, for example, everybody has overall got a 3.5%, you know, the whole table moved 3.5% as an example, and then those people, maybe they would take a lane step as well, based on the years and the lane that they're in. I just want to make sure that at the top end of the scale, that they're not froze there or not, you know.
We do not plan on
missing.
having them
I
frozen.
mean, is there a possibility of adding a lane or two? Or I don't know how many employees we have on the top end of that table, but.
Right.
I mean, I think it's really important, like, it wouldn't be fair if you're giving the same amount all the way across the board without a performance metrics in there, matrix, then it doesn't make, it wouldn't be fair to move the same person that's a 3-year employee as the person that's a 30-year employee.
Correct.
What's your
And
retainment, you know, what's the retainment mission there? You know, it's just not happening. So I just want to be clear that we take a close look at that salary table when it comes back to the board, and I'm anxious to see those numbers when you get them.
Well, we aren't planning on changing the salary table like, what we're saying is next year, we need to do a comprehensive change and audit to our entire salary schedule for support staff and for teacher salary, because,
But that is something different than what I was referring to.
Yeah.
Correct?
Correct, yes. But what you said about making sure that those people don't stay stagnant at the top end, we are in agreement with that.
Okay.
The thing is that things are so, not discombobulated, but we don't actually know exactly where we are, and we're facing crunch time because we have to get the contracts out, and we have to have the salary schedule because that goes on the contracts.
Right.
But what I think Kelly is alluding to is that we would like to have a comprehensive plan for all employees, for teachers, for those specialists who require a master's degree to be able to do their position, like speech,
Yes.
OTPT, counselors, school psychologists, have a separate scale for them as well, because many districts do. So as an attraction and retention piece, we have to make sure that we try to compete with them, but also live within our means as well. So I think there will be other things to consider, but the plan is that Mrs. Fossbender will be working with a group of staff to work through these things to develop this, because it's something that's going to take a significant amount of time. But in the meanwhile, we have to do something as well, because we don't want to lose our staff.
And like I said, in the past, I think that this is part of what I'm hearing from veteran staff is why you might have a staff member who's been here for many years, but experienced frozen spots within. So they haven't been able to move ahead because they've had other budget constraints within the budget that year, or health insurance increases, which they absorbed those things. So
We definitely need a handle on it because, I mean, at this point, trying to encompass the positions that are all over the board, then you might as well negotiate everybody's salary. And that's
Right.
exactly the opposite of what I think.
Right, that's
Correct.
the exact opposite of the purpose of a salary schedule.
Exactly.
And the exact barriers that we're facing, and the exact issues that staff very validly is expressing. We can't unfortunately fix all of that right now, and we're trying to do our absolute best within reorganization, within having to make the least amount of staff cuts, within having to, not face a deficit as JD talked about earlier. And all of these pieces all fit together. So like I was trying to say earlier, when you're making fiscal decisions, if it doesn't come from here, it's all the same pie. So we want to do everything, but we have to think about the whole picture. And I think are all in agreement that we don't want our veteran staff to stay stagnant or freeze on the salary schedule. How this salary schedule works is each step and lane has a different percentage, and then you average it all out to be an overall percentage, but not everybody is getting the same percentage. Everybody is getting, how this was designed was that everybody was getting the same amount of a raise each year.
It would be easier to see if the percent increased, if you had the table, and then the table again with the percentages that were the increase.
I can tell you that it ranges from around 2% to around 5 to 6%, depending on where you are.
Do you think the staff will feel confident enough that we're not going to freeze them? Like, they got to sign their contracts, and we're saying we're not going to freeze you, but we don't actually know. It's like a...
Well, I know that we're not going to freeze them, but yes, it's not in there. I guess that's a choice that they're going to have to make.
But that's not the motion. It's not, the request is not to freeze. That's not of consideration.
Maybe he can amend the motion to say that.
But are some people frozen?
Some people
technically,
have been frozen.
If we approve this.
If
they're
you approve
technically
this the way that it is, technically, the people who are not on the scale would be frozen. So we don't want that to be the case. So if you want to make a motion to say, however you want it to read, however you think they would feel most comfortable. But I can't give you an exact number because we are still trying to figure out the support staff calendar as well, our salary schedule as well, because we don't want to not give support staff a raise because those people, like I said, are getting no raise for 5 years, 5-year increments. So they are frozen.
So can we
At
say,
50 cents.
Can it be something like, you have an idea?
Well, I was just going to say that this administration, as well as this board, has recently shown our support, both verbally and in a monetary way, to our veteran staff. So I feel like they should be able to trust that we say we're not going to freeze them, we're not going to freeze them. I mean, last year, we were very generous to that group of staff.
Yeah, I didn't know if we should just add in, and at a minimum, you'll get a certain percentage raise if you're not frozen, like 2% or something.
I don't like tying that.
Well, the other consideration too is, I'm struggling, I'm with you, JD, entirely, and I also appreciate your feedback too, Kristen. Where I struggle is, I don't know if there's anybody that if, the language is so important that we don't know if there's a staff member that, I don't know, for performance reasons, may not get a raise, that if we have verbiage indicating.
But it would be anyone not on the salary schedule gets a minimum of a certain percentage raise.
So you're talking about the support staff?
No.
No, just.
These are certified staff.
Just certified teaching staff?
Yeah.
Kelly, isn't it true that when you give out these contracts, anybody who is not on lane 8, step 3, will see a raise?
Yes, right away.
Exactly.
The
Because,
only people.
because they are going to move from 1-1 to 1-2. Those on 1-2 are going to move to 1-3. Those on 1-3 are going to move to 2-1. And there's 8 lanes with 24 little boxes with numbers in them, which are always higher. And so the only ones that won't see a raise in the contract they get on May 15th will be someone that's at 8-3 and those who are getting salaries above what the person gets at 8.3. And a person who's currently at 8.2 who moves to 8.3 will get a raise right away. So that's what's going to happen. And then retroactively, everybody in the district, teacher, custodians, whatever, will get a raise based on what Kelly is able to determine going forward is the proper raise to give based on what's left in the pot.
Right.
So you don't have to sign new contracts then, you just do it?
Well, by June 15th, they would have to sign their new contract.
I mean, if you put this certain dollar value in, and then you change the dollar value.
I need to do an amendment.
Does that take a new contract?
Yes, we would hand them an amendment, and then they would sign that amendment with the increased salary to it.
And they would need to have that one in by when?
I mean, any,
As soon as
you
the board
can,
approves it, it would be sent out the following day.
yeah, you can amend it
Whatever the
at any
addendum
time.
was.
So
Just like with our coaching co-curriculars, we made those things, we retroactively did because it was not ready with the administrative turnover and all of those things. We wanted to make sure that that was absolutely equitable and had Mr. Schofield do that through a fine tooth comb, and we made sure that they did get the changes that they needed, even though it took a longer time. We wanted to make sure that we put every effort we could to make sure it was absolutely accurate and equitable between everybody, and they did get that raise.
So when would the amended contracts come out?
As soon as
As
the
soon as
board
we-
approves it.
Like, I mean, like, is this a process that's 5 months, 4 months,
Oh, no, no, no.
weeks?
Preliminary budget will come to you around in June. So one of the delays is that there was not a place where, when we came into the district, everybody in the district with their salary, their name, their position was housed. So one of the things that we've had to do over the last however many months since August, we have been feverishly looking and gathering all of that information and putting it into spreadsheets and figuring out what everybody makes, how we can provide a budget for staffing, knowing that we had staff that were allocated out of grant money that needed to be reallocated. So there's a lot of pieces to it, and we're working as fast as we possibly can. But the good news is that we have money to be able to provide increases to our staff, whereas some districts right now are freezing staff wages. So we're doing the best that we possibly can to do the most good for the most people that we possibly can with the district, and we don't want any portion of anybody in our district to be at a frozen rate. So from the custodians and the kitchen staff all the way up to our most veteran staff who are beyond the pay scale.
Motion currently on the floor is I move the board approve the certified staff wage salary schedule for the fiscal year 2024-2025. Any other discussion?
No, final comment is I am in support of the motion due to the timeliness and the need. And my vote in favor is also with the anticipation that there will be a retroactive pay. So that's all.
Any other discussion? Hearing no discussion, motion on the floor is to approve the certified salary of the staff wage. Voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? The vote is now closed. And the motion carries. Okay, I leaned over at one point to Dave, just so everybody knows what I was whispering in his ear. I have to recuse myself from item L, so Dr. Bardo will actually take over the chair's position.
We need a motion on L, consideration to approve health insurance renewal contract for the year 2024-2025. Looking for a motion.
I move the board
Why
of
do you have to recuse? I guess.
I have to recuse myself because my wife is an employee of the district, and she does receive health insurance as a single person. I and my family are on my plan, but because she's there. Good question, Scott, thank you.
I move the board approve the Aspire's health insurance plan options as presented with an increase of 12.5%, including keeping the plan deductible at $7,050 for a single and $14,100 family, requiring staff electing to take the benefit pay the equivalent of 13.5% of the Freedom Premium or the equivalent of 8.15% of the Signature Premium. The plan design for employees will change slightly from 1,500 single, 3,000 family deductible to 1,600 single, 3,200 family to comply with IRS regulations for HSA eligibility.
We have a motion on the floor. Jill, would you like to speak to your motion?
I'll hand it off to Kelly if she'd like to say anything further.
Like I said earlier, we're not looking to offset the district cost by increasing contributions from staff, which is a strategy that districts use to be able to offset these increases. To Mr. Peterson's point earlier, we do have a lot of very high-cost claimants, and that is part of the reason why we have such a large increase. And last year, we had a large increase of 12.5% as well. So there was no change to our dental plan, no change to vision, no change to life or long-term disability, and employee assistance services are anticipated to renew as well. We also have added some voluntary, which means employee-paid accident insurance. Those details are in there, which we also will share with staff in detail as well. But that these voluntary benefits are associated with the fact that we have a group plan, so they wouldn't be able to get these on their own if we wouldn't have that. So it is an additional piece that is of no cost to the district, but is also a benefit to our employees that we elected to do, which we had the choice to do or not. And then there's also the voluntary critical illness, which works similarly to the accident insurance, but this one is a lump sum payout for medical conditions such as cancer, stroke, heart attack, dementia, et cetera. But a person who is currently managing one of these conditions wouldn't be eligible for the payout on that condition. Additionally, then both would come with a wellness benefit, meaning that if a person gets their preventative screenings and visits done, they can submit and receive $50 to $100 benefit or payout, which is great to offset premiums and such. One thing I do want to note is these are snapshot in time. So when you see $449,000 as an impact to our district, we do open enrollment in late May. So that's when staff choose to elect different plans, and those numbers can change. So obviously, everything that we do, including our salary, estimates, can change based on staff turnover, healthcare as well. We can have staff turnover who elect or don't elect, or who choose different plans that may impact, but this is the best projection that we have at this time.
The current rates on the bottom where it says current and renewal, on the bottom of your attachment, it says coverage type, employee, family, and then the monthly premium.
You're looking at the other attachment that I have to sign? Is that what you mean?
Under
The second attachment.
Aspire's health plan.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So those are the different plans
Right.
that we have. And then this is just allowing them to move forward with the renewal. We do have some grandfathered plans that I learned of for people who have retired from the district many years ago
Yeah.
so those are those other plans that you see on there as grandfathered people. We do have 2 that are terming next year, so that will be.
I was trying to see what the premium is for our employees per month.
Like I said, this might vary based on the fact that
Right.
for open enrollment, but if you look at the topic summary sheet,
Okay.
you should be able to see the employee from the current package to the renewal package. You will see that the freedom is a little bit higher, but it always has been due to the fact that I believe Marshfield Clinic is on there, which gives employees an additional benefit if those are the doctors that they choose, or if they have a healthcare condition that they need to go to that facility for. So you'll see that right under where it says monthly premium.
So a family monthly premium, the renewal rate is $1,784?
That is not including all of the contribution rates, so it's much less than that. I can get you all of that information.
Okay, we can look at it
Yeah.
in more detail later.
No, the district pays a percentage. So if you look at the employee contributions, you can see that on the signature network, we are, just for example, teachers, custodians, and 12-month support staff, we are electing to continue paying 91.85% of their premiums. So when we look at that's what I was trying to say earlier, when you look at the whole package and we're not freezing wages,
Right.
this is also a benefit to the district that the district is absorbing. And one of the things that was suggested to us was, well, you can increase employee contributions significantly, and that was something we elected not to do. So as you can see, the deduction per check was at $25.27, but that obviously will increase slightly because of the increase.
I just had to get to the next page. Thank you. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, there's so much on here, there's a lot.
Kelly, maybe you said this already and I just missed it, but what'd you say about when you put it out for bid to other
We did.
places, and they were way more? Or
Yes.
how many places did you put it out to bid for?
I can get you all those details, but there was
Roughly.
several. There was some that did not elect to engage with us for whatever reason, due to our loss ratio, because we are at about 108%, which is really significant when you're looking at how a hospital views wanting to
That
take.
means we lost more than we had.
They lost more.
Than
Yep.
we paid.
Yeah. Yep. So they're losing money on us. But we were strict negotiators, and we ended up coming back with, it went from 22% to 12.5%, which still seems extremely high, but in looking and talking with the business managers in our regional areas, this is very typical for health insurance increases in our area. Every district is dealing with it differently, how they're impacting that on their budget. But we had one additional plan that came in a little bit closer, but looking at how it would impact our employees, it wasn't something that, Aspira still came in lower, so it would have impacted our employees negatively, meaning they would actually have to pay more than the district would have. So we elected to go with the plan that our employees would have to pay less on and have more options. And really stick with the same doctors that they have currently now and not necessarily have to shift. But we did go out to market. We also explored clinic options as well, and we looked at self-funding. So we really did. And I can get you all of those more details from our consultant and things. Yeah, it's exciting.
Any further questions?
I appreciate all the work you're putting into this. Is a difficult conversation. It's always impactful on our staff, and it is at least reassuring as an employer that we can offer what we do at the prices we can, because I'm going to go out on a limb to say many companies in Langley County and beyond are not able to offer health insurance at these costs. So we are fortunate for that.
Any further comments? Hearing none. Dustin, open it up for our voting. I'm missing somebody. Oh, yeah, Stanny. Anyone want to change their vote? Hearing none. Dustin? And it passes.
Okay, letter M, report of donations. I will be looking for a motion, please.
I move the board to approve the following donations: $500 from Antigo Dental Clinic for AHS softball, $100 from Zelzowski Wood Products for mental health, and $100 from Kretz Lumber for Raise Your Voice, a total of $700.
Motion has been made by Bobby. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Just a big thank you to anyone donating.
Any discussion of the motion on the floor? Hearing no discussion of the motion on the floor, all in favor of receiving these donations, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. And the motion carries. Item number 7, new business. We are looking at Schofield Stadium. Mr. Leiderman. Come on down.
Okay, part of the engineering report that we did for the entire district, really based where it started off of from the task force, we included them doing a full analysis of all of our facilities, which included our sports facilities, obviously Schofield Stadium. Particularly, I want to talk about the home bleacher section of Schofield Stadium, the old concrete structure that was built in the late 30s. They have deemed that structure to be compromised to the extent that they recommend that we stop using that structure immediately. I want to be very clear that that is just the home bleacher section. It's not the whole property. The field, the concession stand, ticket booth, the rest of that is still usable. It's just the concrete home bleachers that is not usable.
Does that include the press box?
The press box, because it's supported by that
By the
structure,
bleacher, okay.
or rather that you have to access it from that structure, yes. So when we found out that news, obviously we knew that it was going to be a very emotional, delicate topic that we wanted to make sure that we addressed appropriately. So we thought that it would be best to first talk with Coach Schofield, give him the information, get his input on how we wanted to move forward. Then we discussed it with the Gridiron Club and kind of got their input. We did bring it up at the staff meeting this past Friday to let them know. Now I wanted to just formally come here and inform the board of that. At this time, we have a lot more questions than answers. I guess immediately for this fall, the solution is we will have to bring in temporary seating for the games, still host the games at Schofield, but just not use the home bleachers.
So where would you put them?
The temporary bleachers, likely on the visitor side. That'd be the most logical. I don't have all the dimensions and layout done yet.
Makes
but
sense. I mean, where else are you gonna put them?
Yeah. One thing that we heard very strongly from the Gridiron Club was that we should engage the past donors, most recent donors, anybody that has any naming rights of sorts to that property, any potential donors, and try to have some personal conversations with them, get their opinion on the matter as a whole, and kind of use that as a starting point for finding the right solution. I did reach out to a company that does build or manufacture new aluminum, like grandstand type seating with the press box, that type of a structure that we could potentially buy and use, whether it's at Schofield or another location. And I said, just theoretically, if we could give you a PO today, would we be able to have that structure manufactured and on site in time to use for games in September? And they said absolutely not. Not enough time. So I think that pretty much leads us to what I said is we're gonna have to use temporary seating have games there, get through the season, but in the meantime, we're going to work on the proper solution. Again, I have more questions than answers right now, but I just wanted to let you know that that's kind of where we're at. We're going to be exploring many options, talking to key stakeholders. I'll keep you guys informed as we move through that process. Obviously, you guys will have some input on that as well. But I guess I just wanted to get that out there formally so that everybody heard factual information other than rumors. You know, one of the rumors that we heard is that we just wanted to close Schofield Stadium to pile on a sports complex onto any possible referendum work that may be coming later on, and we do not intend to do that. That has not been discussed by anybody that I've been involved with. Those are rumors and not true, so just want to be upfront and put out the facts.
So they think it's going to collapse if too many people are in it? Like, what's their degree of confidence in that?
I guess I don't see
It's
why we can't
unsafe.
use it for,
It's unsafe immediately. Like, they wanted us to stop using it,
who's they?
the
Lars,
engineers.
Larson Engineering.
So it's not like it's a legal thing? There's no government entity telling us
Could
to.
be.
At this point that
but
we are
if
informed
we-
that it's not safe
certainly
and
it-
someone gets hurt, we would.
Hold on, one at a time here,
liability.
one at a time.
Certainly it could be, but that thing is not gonna fall down tomorrow.
I don't know that I would be comfortable taking that risk and liability.
Especially if you only put like a quarter of the people on it or something.
Pardon?
If you only put a quarter of the people on it.
Yeah, we don't get more than 300 people at a game.
Lottery.
So a couple things that I can say for certain on that, Scott. They did not put a date on when it would fall down. I tried to have that discussion, you know, do we have another year, do we not? And basically, the long and the short of it was, how could we pick and say that it's gonna fall, or it's no longer, or it's safe to be used on December 1st, but now on December 2nd, it's no longer safe? They said, how can we pick a date? We have to look at the condition of it right now and determine if it's safe to use or if it's not safe to use. And the biggest liability thing from that is the report specifically says that they have deemed it unsafe to use and we should not use it
Why is it
effective
unsafe? What are they-
immediately.
What's unsafe about it?
I have I think it's close to a 60-page report that I can go through. I'm not prepared to present
Right, I
it
get
tonight, but basically, the biggest thing is that everything from the support walls that go north and south, I mean, you're very familiar, so I'll talk in a little bit of detail. The support walls that are north and south under there are cracking and shifting in certain ways that they're saying that the whole structure is moving. The steps or the seats of the structure that have rebar encased in them underneath, and particularly in the east and west end where that they were blocked in the back where you couldn't get in through a door or through the interior doors, seem to hold more moisture. We opened some of those up, and a lot of the bottoms of those are, the rebar is rusting and expanding because it's breaking down, it gets bigger, and it's popping the whole bottom of that concrete off. So there's large pieces of concrete that have come off of there. I said, okay, well, you know, maybe it's just those east and west ends that are really bad because they were closed in. Can we still use the center? And they showed me examples where there's hairline cracks starting that will eventually result in the same way. So
I guess I would like, and you can't know this, but how long has it been that way? How fast is it deteriorating? I think it's going pretty, for the years it's been there, I just would be confident saying we have 2 or 3 years.
You'd think maybe they'd sign a waiver. If you stand in it, you
Oh my
stay on the
gosh.
first 2 levels.
This was insanity.
I
You gotta understand, from a building standpoint, it's not static load, it's live load. You put 1,000 people on there, and there's a big play, and everybody jumps up at the same time and lands on it. What are you putting, 500,000 pounds of pressure on it? Is it gonna hold or not? And you think that they're telling you.
I would like to say that I think that we need to be really aware of our conversation at this moment, because there's a lot of truths and a lot of misinformation regardless of agenda items. And the fact that we are given information saying that this structure is deemed unsafe and stop using it effective immediately, but there's discussion about potentially still using this, knowing the safety concerns, is mind-blowing to me, and I think we need to be very aware of this conversation to even consider risk to anybody sitting in those stands.
Agreed.
Thank you, Jill.
I will say that I did try and play devil's advocate as best I could with the engineering firm and push back.
That's all I'm trying to do.
And say, you know, why now? Why can't it be at the end of the season? Why can't it be? And they cut me off very quickly every step of the way and cited a number of the cracks and telltale signs that they're very confident that that structure is moving, not just a piece of it here and there, but there's signs all over that structure that it is compromised and it is moving. And, yeah, I don't know how our insurance would even begin to entertain allowing us to
Obviously, they're
use
gonna
that
control what we do.
with a certified engineer report that says stop using it immediately. So I mean, Scott, I can go through that with you. I
No,
certainly.
I get what you're saying.
No, but I want to be thorough
Right.
too.
Just trying to play the devil's advocate.
Yeah.
So are you going to try to get it knocked down in the very near future, or what?
I don't have an answer for that. I'm going to get a price for that. I'm going to get pricing on demolishing it. I'm going to get a price on temporary bleachers. I'm going to get a price on permanent bleachers. Regardless of what we do, whether the solution is there or elsewhere or
How about a price on
somewhere in
moving it?
between. What's that?
I think you should get a price on moving it too, out to here.
Yes, yep. And we're gonna get all those prices together, have that conversation in depth with the community, the Gridiron Club, school board. And really, it's unfortunate that we can't get to a permanent solution this fall. But I also think it's a blessing that we have a little bit of time to really have those conversations and try and make the best choice we can for this community moving forward.
So do you think you'll form a committee regarding Schofield Stadium, or how? I know it's very early, but.
Do we own that? We own the stadium?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, raising that kind of a structure is
Huge.
expensive. And I don't know. I mean, I think you're gonna have a lot of opinions on what to do with it.
I got a big one.
We're hearing some of it.
You might need a committee.
Yeah, I think a
I don't
committee
know.
probably
I
would
just
be
got a stake in
appropriate.
it.
You do.
Yep.
A huge stake.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's why I appreciate you bringing it to us, because you're right, there's a lot of emotion attached to it for, I don't want to speak for all of us, but I'm going to say a great number of us in our community. And it's kind of a staple here. So it is,
I would think maybe, I guess I'll wait until we have a further discussion to see what I got to say.
Talk with Jake one-on-one.
Yeah,
Well, I've already been vocal about it. People in the community know what I think.
yeah, I mean, it
I
is,
mean, if you want to know what I think, I'll say it, but I don't know. We've been here a long time already.
I think in all fairness, I think I'm supportive of hearing. I don't know where you stand.
I
so
just
I'd be
think we should
interested.
move. When I sit with my dad at those games, and he has got a large stake in that stadium, when the team runs out on the field now, his first comment is, that's right, we come in on the visitor's side now. There's no tradition left in that place anymore. Tradition started going out when I was in second grade and they tore the fence down. There was a double-walled creosote fence around there. That place had character. It had a grandstand. We could play wiffle ball into the grandstand when it was raining. So all that tradition it started being tore apart a long time ago. And our football team hasn't been that good lately. So maybe it's time to let these kids start a new tradition somewhere else. That's my short hands, is my short version.
Thank you for sharing that. And
And
those
I
are,
think I can speak for my father and Coach Schofield, who's not here, felt the same way. I mean, he's dead now, but I don't know how Tom feels. I haven't had a talk with him. But you got a guy whose stone was in the end zone saying, why don't we move? Now, he's not here to say that, but my dad, 96, 95, will come and tell you that.
We can keep the name. We can keep the name.
Absolutely. You can move the stone, put it on a forklift.
Well, it's so much money, right? Bleachers are probably $600,000 more, million, more than our health insurance increase and our
Plus to
teacher
tear it
wage
down?
increase. Oh, yeah.
Okay, Jake, thank you so much for delivering that news on Schofield Stadium. And I would entertain the committee idea going forward, get a good cross-section of people that would be involved with that. So, thank you so much. Item 8, closed session, consideration of a motion to adjourn in closed session pursuant to Section 19.851C of the Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, including conducting a private conference regarding possible non-renewal of teacher contract. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Motion is made by Jill. Is there a second for this motion?
A second.
Second for this motion by Kristen Matt Miller. Would you like to speak to your motion, Jill?
No, thank you.
Any discussion of the motion on the floor? We'll have a roll call vote, please. Michelle?
Bobby Braun?
Here, yes.
Jill Medic Nelson?
Yes.
Kristen Matt Miller?
Yes.
Scott Peterson?
Yes.
Catherine Solon?
Yes.
JD Schrader?
Yes.
Danny Pyatt?
Yes.
Roger Bardo?
Motion's been carried. We are now in closed session.